welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast where we chart the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
John Campbell. We're finishing the 70s today, John. How do you feel about that?
The 70s comes to an end. I feel pretty good about it. I think I'm ready to move on to a new decade. Although, it'll be interesting, as it always is, to see how much of a transition it is immediately. Because, like, movies from 1980... I don't think are going to be radically different all of a sudden than movies from 1979.
No, it's true. I will say that, a lot of this has to do with the fact that this was our first season where we're tracking across multiple production companies, studios, so forth. Yeah. So it had a feel like we were making drastic jumps over the course of 10 years. Yeah. I will say that the 70s was transformative because going from Hammer at the end to where we are now, it does feel like we came a long way, baby.
And also, you know what I love is we have bookended this season with Dracula adaptations.
And I have no problem with that.
No.
The 70s, we've had 5 Dracula adaptations in one decade.
Yes.
And I'm including Nosferatu, which is really kind of a remake of an adaptation of a...
Yeah, but he's called Dracula, so we're good, you know?
Yeah. I will say that, spoiler alert, before we get into the episode, of those, this is the best one.
Agreed.
I will also say I had problems with it, but that just also is putting in the rearview mirror, looking at the other ones, you're like, okay, well, Nosferatu is a classic, and there's great stuff in it.
I would be more want to watch this again, though, only because Nosferatu is brilliant, but a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
This one is certainly more fun than Nosferatu.
Yes, it is. Yes. But it is amazing that the 70s gave us that many.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about Dracula films because the 60s and the 40s we had Dracula films, but these are adaptations of the book over and over and over again. We got to see many different takes.
And I think in some way, like, I think I am much hotter on this movie than you are. I really like this movie a lot. And maybe in some ways that is because of, I think, some of the stuff you don't like, which is I like that this radically deviates because we've seen so many adaptations. I like that this is the one that's like, this is going to be this version of it. This is the John Badham version of Dracula. It's its own thing.
Some of the changes I liked a lot, some I didn't, but we'll talk about them. But, I mean, I did appreciate that. It did seem to me very strange that, yet again, this is an adaptation, not of the novel, but just like 1931's, this is an adaptation of Hamilton Dean's creaky stage adaptation.
It is and it isn't. And I watched all the features on the Shout Factory thing where they have Badham and our boy, writer W.D. Richter. We love that.
I know.
guy.
I can't wait to talk about W.D.
Yeah. There's an interview with both him and Badham on the Shout Factory Blu-ray.
I saw no special features, but I mean, I could tell the changes that Richter made to the play because this was also the reason this movie exists, is that the Hamilton Dean stage production was hot again in the late 70s on Broadway, which is where Frank Langella was attached to the role. And then later Raul Julia as well.
God, I would have loved to have seen both of those guys play Dracula on stage. Yeah. That would have been something.
Yeah.
Raul Julia. Oh, man.
But it seems weird to me, as we'll talk about in a second, some of the changes that Dean made to the original material that are in the 31 film also that made it this far. I'm like, why do we keep using these arbitrary changes, like people's relationships and the...
And that's interesting because W.D. Richter talks so much about, like, I really went back to the book. I really went back and readapted the novel.
Yeah, then why is Lucy our heroine?
Yeah, that's a change that's
makes no sense because she's even portrayed like Mina.
Yeah,
she's given Mina's character.
No, they literally just swap the names. They didn't change the characters. They just switched the names. It's really, but it's a change we've seen before, and I don't know what that's about.
It is literally, when he says he went back to the book, I mean, I believe him, but he's still beholden to the changes that were made in that play. Because the play is where Lucy suddenly becomes the love interest or the main target, and she is Dr. Seward's daughter. That was in Lugosi as well.
I actually like that. I've always liked that change, because it just, I mean, if you're not going to do the traditional book, right?
I just don't see why it's necessary, and I don't know why it's necessary to make Mina the weak one who's the victim, and is suddenly Van Helsing's daughter.
Well,
You're like,
but
okay,
that's the thing. Yeah, they don't make Mina. Once again, they don't take the character of Mina. It's so weird. It's literally just like, oh, we just like the name Lucy better for our lead.
they just swapped the name.
That's purely what it is. It's fascinating.
And I know that's arbitrary, and that's why I think such a change doesn't make sense,
No, I've
because
never
it is so
understood that.
arbitrary.
And like I said, we've seen it across multiple adaptations now, and it's weird. And ones that
It is.
aren't even connected to each other or this play.
And we got rid of the extra. We get rid of the extra Lucy love interest. We don't have an Arthur. We don't have a Quincy.
No.
Always a mistake. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into that. But the thing I was going to say overall, since we're talking up front before we dive into the movie itself,
we haven't even said what we're talking about.
We're talking about 1979's Dracula. The thing that definitely that's exciting about this is I love seeing the Universal logo back up front in a Dracula movie. And two, after all these movies we've watched, TV movies and everything, here is a big budget Hollywood adaptation. This
Agreed. I like the money that was spent on it.
The gloss and the look and the professionalism of a studio picture. Grade A cast. Gorgeous sets. My God, Carfax Abbey. I fucking love the set for Carfax Abbey.
But I have a problem with that. No, what I will agree with is the sets look great.
Mm-hmm.
The logic behind them is fucked up. But this the photography is excellent. I found some of the direction very questionable.
There's some stuff
Badham
of its time for sure.
He does a fine job, but it does look gorgeous.
Yeah.
And this is a first-rate cast.
Yeah.
So yeah, on that I can't fault it.
I mean, in some ways, it is just like a nice ending
A
to
change.
this thing to be like, oh man, to see top artisans at work, and
yes,
there's not there are changes, but there's not a lot of compromises because of money and stuff like that. It does feel like
very true, and you can tell this was meant to be maybe not a tent pole, obviously, but this was definitely meant to be like, we brought him back and we have spared no expense. Here is a Universal Dracula for the 1970s.
Well, because you think about the time this comes in is the rise of the blockbuster, right? Post Star Wars, post Superman, Close Encounters, Jaws, these movies that are bigger, heading to tentpole. And I do think this was meant to be a big release, and it did okay.
Yeah, it did.
Which Badham talked about on the thing, where he's like, he actually said he has more people now who love, like, he feels like it's grown in esteem since it came out, is what Badham was saying, which he said is nice.
So I think so.
When he's doing his horror conventions,
right?
I'd
say that when you do a comparison, and actually, even though there have been millions of Dracula films, basically. When you're talking about adaptations of the classic story, there aren't that many, and much less ones that you want to point to and go, nicely done. This will always get that consideration because, as we've said, compared to a lot of what we see with Dracula in it, this is a high-end production, and I can nitpick it, and I will, but at the same time, this is a handsome, respectful Dracula.
It's a serious movie, and that was something Badham was very clear about in his interview. His big thing was he's like, I do not want to do anything campy. I don't want to do, because he talked about the stage play had camp to it. Like when he saw Langella, he goes, Langella was great. The play was very campy, though. It had a very theatrical sense. He goes, I don't want to do that. And he said when they hired Langella, he was like, I really want to take this seriously.
I think the 70s stage play is the one that, the one that we're talking about. I think it's the one that had the sets designed by Edward Gorey.
You are correct, sir. They talk about that. Yeah. And they have pictures.
And so it was leaning into, not cartoon, but it was definitely leaning into, we're doing a stylized Dracula. Because everyone knows this creaky old story, so...
That's what he was talking about, Badham. Yeah. They have pictures in the documentary of things from that where it is like, oh yeah, it's not a bookcase behind them on stage. It is an Edward Gorey drawing of a bookcase.
Right. Yes.
And stuff like that, which is cool and works on the stage. But, Badham's like, no, I wanted to be grounded. I want everything to be real and really build the sets and, really go at it. And Langella was on board for that. Now, I don't know, did you see this about the 2 stipulations Langella had before
please tell
taking this movie? He said, I will play Dracula on film under 2 conditions. 1, I will do no commercial promotion dressed as Dracula.
Nice.
All right. And 2, I think this is where he's gonna lose you. I'm not wearing any fucking fangs in this thing. All right, no fangs at all.
Yeah.
And Badham said why, and this is great. I love that he said. Well, this is Badham recounting. I don't know, but he said because Langella told him, "I can act the fangs. You won't have to see them. My performance will infer the fangs."
Okay.
And you're like, all right. This was Langella riding high.
Yeah, it was. Actually, lack of fangs is only disappointing if it is called attention to. In other words, if Lucy, Mina, when she turns, and Lucy later on, it's like if they did not have them, okay.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of they never settled on what a vampire looks like because poor Mina looks like fucking shit.
Oh my god!
But
so shocking.
Lucy looks great, and Frank Langella never changes. He just looks like, and so you're like, well, what is vampirism in this universe? And therefore, that inconsistency bugs me. It's not that he's being vain about I will not wear fangs. Lugosi didn't have fangs. Like, that guy inferred fangs.
Yeah. Well, and then Badham and Richter both were big into this. We really wanted to play. And I don't even have to tell you this. If you've seen anything from the movie, they really wanted to play the seductive, romantic Dracula. But what I like about this is we've talked about other romantic Draculas. He's not the tragic romantic Dracula in this. He's a predator in this.
We'll talk about that too as we get into it. But one thing I found really, because I've seen this so many times, but this is the first time with a podcast in mind where I'm analyzing.
It's been years since I've definitely seen this before. I remember liking it before, but it's been a long time since I've watched this.
So this is me analyzing it, and I sit there later going, I remembered how it ended, and I remembered what the implications of the end were, and they build up this kind of romance thing. But what's really something that occurred to me this time on watching it, I'm like, well, it is kind of like, all right, Lucy is seduced by him, and there is a connection, a romantic connection. So we're meant to infer that she wanted it the whole time. And yet, Dracula himself, as you just pointed out, they do paint him clearly as a predator.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that romantic. He says, like, okay, now you will come to me and do anything I say. That's not romance. No. He's basically telling her, well, now that we've sealed this deal, you're my slave. And she's kind of like, great.
Yeah. Well,
that's exactly.
Because
you're like, wow, that's not progressive.
They don't add in the thing of her being the reincarnation or which,
no, they don't do that. Yeah.
My oft reference and much loved Coppola version where it is, I've crossed oceans of time to be with you. That's not this. This guy is just like, you're hot. I like you. I'm going to go with you.
And he says, I've had so many goddamn wives.
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'm lousy with wives.
Oh,
and you're going to be my new one. He basically tells her.
Oh, God, I love when his full-on villain monologues in this thing are great.
Oh, no, that's shit I fucking love. Are you kidding me?
And
Here's a movie where we've got a Dracula. It's not just monologuing. It's just outside of maybe a couple of others, we have a Dracula here that's thinking.
Yeah.
We have a Dracula that has kind of a mission, which he states.
Yeah.
And it's just a great actor with one of the greatest voices. Oh. And I'm just like, talk all day long, Dracula. I'm here.
Honestly, watching this, and I remember liking it before, but I really do think Langella is in the top tier of Draculas. I think
he's amazing. He's amazing.
Dracula.
And terrible hair.
Well, yes, the hair is bad because it's 1979 hair.
Yes, I kept thinking, if you're going to go this far as try to make a late 1890s, because they seem to have bounced it up a little bit. The whole idea of like Jonathan Harker has a little car.
According to John Badham, it's set in 1913.
Oh, 1913. That makes even more sense. Yeah. Okay. But so that kind of stuff. All right, but if you're going to do that, But if you're going to pay all this attention, why didn't you just cut their hair to be
Yeah.
of that period? Because Dracula's got the feathered
Yeah.
1970s hair, and Jonathan Harker has the feathered 1970s
Do you think
hair.
Langella was just like, you're not touching this?
I think that's basically it.
Yeah.
And it does take me out a little bit
Yeah.
because it's so entrenched
Love
in
the
that
cape,
period.
though. He's got a full-on badass cape.
That is a badass cape, except for that collar is, and I love a big collar. Oh, I still think Doctor Strange's collar could be easily another foot, but Dracula's got a ginormous 1979 collar
I
on
would have
this
thought
thing.
you would have loved this collar, because I know you are always looking for a bigger collar on Dracula.
Yeah. I didn't like when he basically becomes, shirt open to navel towards the end when he's just like, you know what, I had a suit earlier, but now it's all about just look at my chest.
Well, because something Badham also said in the interview is he just goes, I mean, at a certain point in our filmmaking, we just couldn't deny the sex appeal of Frank Langella. Which is...
Well, it's all right.
So interesting to me, because I certainly grew up in an era where he was a well-respected character actor, but he was not heartthrob by any means.
No, this is him literally breaking out of the stage because, he had done a couple other movies, but small things.
I distinctly remember him as Zorro as a kid, seeing that.
Oh, yeah.
Because like to me, Frank Langella was either the bad guy in 90s movies like Ivan Reitman's Dave, or he was Zorro and Dracula back in the 70s.
Right.
So he definitely, I was always a fan of his. And wait a minute, wait. He was Skeletor. I forgot as a kid.
Oh no, one of his finest roles.
He's awesome as Skeletor. Legitimately.
He is. He's the saving grace of that film.
And that was one I watched as a kid because I didn't know any better, and it had enough stuff for like 6-year-old me to enjoy. But Langella still to this day says that is his favorite part he's ever played.
He-Man.
Yeah, I love that though about him, where he just goes, the freedom of that makeup. I've never felt more free and open as an actor than playing.
I
Skeletor.
love Langella being a cartoony thespian, like he is acting.
Well, and that was actually something Badham talked about. Was a lot of it was having to bring him way back from the edge of that directing this movie.
Well, that's interesting because you don't. I love his performance in this.
Yeah.
We'll get nitpicky and nitty gritty.
Yeah.
But his performance in this is, I don't get the impression that he's being restrained. He's goddamn charming.
Yeah.
It's just and when he needs to be serious and evil, he can bring it.
Yep. He's great.
He's a great Dracula in a film that I wish were better for him.
Let's talk about this poster though, because
it's famous.
It is, and it's also very much indicates they really are firmly leaning into this is a hot Dracula.
Yet the movie isn't. I mean,
no.
We'll talk about it when we get to the big love scene, but they don't go exploitative or there's no nudity.
It's another Badham thing where he said we wanted the movie to be sexy but not explicit.
That's exactly what they did. So we have Frank Langella with the biggest collar in the world.
Mm-hmm. I think
and
it's
he's
even
looking
bigger
right
on
at
this
us.
poster. I think the collar's even bigger on the poster.
Yeah, it could be. You've got stormy clouds behind him, night,
which he's almost
clouds
fading into. He's certainly amongst them, right?
Yes.
And then in the foreground here we have
Kate Nelligan.
Yeah, this is Kate Nelligan. Laid out. She's lying on her back. So we're getting this sort of profile shot. It's very much indicating curves.
Yep. And also she's got her mouth open as if in passion.
Mm-hmm.
And then her swelling bosom that is thinly covered by some sort of lacy thing.
Yeah, it definitely.
So they are definitely going, uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
Our old friend certainly was like, I gotta see this one.
Yeah. He was like, been a long time. I hope they do it right by me.
Finally, they're getting back to the real Dracula.
And this one is basically, I thought the tagline is interesting because Dracula has the red title.
Yeah, which I like. I like the font and design of the logo.
Yeah, it's fine. It could be a little bigger actually, but underneath the D, there's a T and then an F. really interesting. So basically, Dracula down to fuck is what they sold this movie on.
Well, because the tagline on the poster is throughout history, he has filled the hearts of men with terror. And that's italicized and underlined.
I know.
And the hearts of women with desire.
Also italicized and underlined.
Yeah, Dracula. I sent this. I was texting my sister that I was watching this movie, and I just sent her this poster, and she goes, "That's an interesting tagline." And I said, yeah, you got to see this version. They're really going at hot Dracula. And she was. My sister's not like a movie, but she likes movies, but she's not like a movie history buff. So she was really like, there was a time Langella was hot. Like that makes no sense to her.
Yeah, that's the thing is if you weren't around then.
No, because like I said, she grew up with him like I did with his like once again he was often bad guys in like comedy movies too because he's also the bad guy in a very terrible movie Ivan Reitman's Jr. as well. He was in 2 Ivan Reitman comedies. That I remember watching as a kid. Dave, I love though. I've seen Dave so many times.
Dave is great.
Dave
great. Is unequivocally enjoyable film.
He is very bad in that. He's a very bad guy, I should say. He's a good performance. But he's the only character in the movie who isn't charmed by Kevin Kline. So you know he's evil. What's wrong with him? Because that is a very charming Kevin Kline.
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, you buy that he could land Sigourney Weaver in that thing.
Yes. I think it's hilarious that, and it seems to be often the case, a lot of our Dracula actors will either be involved with the Zorro project or with the Sherlock Holmes, because Langella also played Sherlock Holmes.
Yes. I was going to say, wait till it's not Sherlock Holmes, but talk about Zorro when we get to the Monster Squad in the 80s, and we have Duncan Regehr, who I think is a great Dracula and a great Zorro.
I will actually, in advance, admit to a love of Monster Squad.
Me too. I watched it recently for Halloween. Still love it. That movie's so much fun.
It is a fun one. It's like, with Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein specifically.
Well, because it's much like that. The monsters are serious, and the kids are funny.
Yeah,
but the threat is real. That is a real deal supervillain Dracula in that movie.
And he looks great.
It looks great.
He's a good-looking Dracula.
Great choice for that.
Again, DTF.
I want to give you some alternate taglines here.
And I'm here to receive them.
I mean, first off, we have just a simplified, throughout history, one name has inspired both horror and desire. I actually like that one better than the men and women.
Hold on.
Yeah.
But what's the name?
I think it's Dracula. It doesn't say here.
Whoa, man, they can't be vague with that. You make a statement like that, a declarative statement. I'm going to need some follow-up.
Well, get ready for a very declarative statement. The story of the greatest lover who ever lived, died, and lived again.
Okay, I didn't like it till that last bit.
Yeah.
Greatest lover?
Yeah.
I mean, no.
Yeah, then throughout eternity, no man has ever provoked such terrible fear and such haunting desire.
So it's like, here's your theme, boys. Just keep dancing around this theme.
This is my favorite one. And yet another, Brendan, make sure you write this one down for your dating profile once again.
All right.
He has walked through centuries, untouched by time. He has seen empires rise and fall. He possesses the wisdom of the ages. Yeah.
Gonna be hard to get on the profile. It's a lot of characters.
It's a little long. I like what that says. I do like that. That's like what Dracula's hype man says before he walks in the room, right? Like, he's seen empires rise and fall.
And then he says, "Thanks, Flav."
Yeah. I do like he has walked through time. I mean, I like the grandiosity of that.
I do too.
Yeah, he has walked through centuries.
Dracula's a character I will always say, go bigger.
Oh, yeah. Bigger is better. Well, we saw Louis Jourdan, subtle Dracula, and Langella is so good at choosing where to be big and where to be subtle. Like, this is the kind of Dracula I love, because I do, and I've talked about this, missing this from some of the other adaptations. I love Dracula in society. I like the monster who hides in plain sight. That goes back to Lugosi.
come from the novel,
No,
and
no,
yet it's something I like.
It goes back to the Lugosi movie. That's one of the things I love
in the
about
novel, it's implied that what he's hoping to do
Yeah.
once he gets to London is do that. But
Yeah.
the problem is that by the time he gets to London, he's already attacked a couple of ladies in Whitby
Right.
whose boyfriends and husbands and an old dude decide, let's get that vampire. So he never gets a chance in the novel to do the, I'm enjoying London's social life. I'm going to the opera.
and
Here I
like-
am going to the Flickr show. All that stuff.
Yeah, now we're getting a Coppola. Langella's so good in those scenes too, because you are going like, oh yeah, it's all part of the plan though. It's all this grand seduction. Which
One
is
of my
great.
favorite things in this movie, and we'll get there too.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to all of it, but the whole thing is one thing from the play that ended up in Lugosi, that ended up here,
Yeah.
that I will fully say thank you, Hamilton Dean, is they kept the Dracula Van Helsing confrontation scene.
It is the-
and it's great.
it is the only
because
thing-
you have two amazing actors.
Badham,
Oof!
yeah, Badham said that was not in the script, and he said
Ooh.
it's the only thing from the play. He said we have to put that in. He told Richter, "You have to put that in from the play. I need that face off."
I agree with
Yeah.
John Badham all
Yeah.
the way. W.D. Richter, the screenwriter of this, he adapted the play. He is also the man who I will forever thank for directing The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth
Across
Dimension.
the Eighth Dimension, man, an amazing movie.
He is also the screenwriter
yeah.
of Big Trouble in Little China.
God damn, another one of my favorites.
And he also directed a little-known film, which wasn't great, Late for Dinner,
Yeah.
which starred it was the first film role of my old pal, Janine Garofalo. And it's the only reason I ever saw that film.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've never seen this picture, because I see it's the only other movie he ever directed, and I go, I've never seen this.
It actually, that movie with Brendan Fraser, where he was the guy in the bomb shelter.
Blast
what was
from
it called?
Blast from the Past.
Blast in the Past. Kind of similar. This was a guy who gets frozen and he wakes up like decades later and he's a man at a time, kind of like Fry from Futurama.
Also, isn't that the Mel Gibson movie Forever Young too?
Maybe so.
Yeah.
But this is going way back. This was Janine's first movie. I think it had to be like 89 or 90 or
it is
91.
91.
Okay. But yeah, no one saw it. No one cared.
I will also
but
say
Janine was okay.
Another great W.D. Richter script that got him this job is the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes, that's another good adaptation.
Yeah, that was the thing that got him the attention to get this gig.
That's a remake / sequel that is one of those. It's like, oh, that stands neck and neck with the original.
I mean, I'm in the camp of I think it's better than the original, and I love the original, but I that 78.
Why do you hate Kevin McCarthy so much? It's amazing the hatred you have.
He has a fun
Kevin
cameo in that Kaufman version.
I know.
And it's
I know.
great.
It's
I really enjoy that.
I love the idea that guy has been running and shouting for like 20 years.
I put Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The Thing as two of the ones I go to that are two of the best.
And The Fly.
And The Fly. Yes, that's another one. Those are 3 sci-fi remakes that I think outdo their originals.
Well, I definitely agree with The Fly because the original is no great shakes. No offense to Vincent Price.
And the thing is just so radically different that it's almost a weird comparison. Like, it's just The Thing from Another World is a fun 50s sci-fi movie, but it's...
You hate Howard Hawks.
Oh, no, I know.
Again, you coming down so hard on these people.
Always despised Howard Hawks. I don't own multiple Criterion collections of his movies by any stretch of the imagination.
But yes, it is true. John Carpenter's The Thing is a visceral masterpiece, and it's not...
it's incredible.
The other one is the 50s sci-fi think piece to some degree. I
do love this, though, because we have Badham coming off of the phenomenon that was Saturday Night Fever.
Yes.
And apparently according to him, he said Walter Mirisch, who produced this movie, the legendary producer, apparently called him and said, Saturday Night Fever is amazing. How would you like to do something completely different? Dracula. And
wow.
And he was like, dude, I love Dracula. Like, Badham said he was a kid who went to Hammer movies and read Tales from the Crypt. He's like, I'd love to make Dracula. That sounds fun. And then Mirisch was like, go to New York, see Frank Langella on Broadway. Tell me what you think. I don't know what Walter Mirisch sounds like, so I'm just making him sound like any Hollywood producer to me. That's right.
They all had the same voice.
Hey, they all had this kind of voice. Yeah.
He's a bright kid. He's got the big hair.
Yeah.
Frank Langella, you're going to love him.
One thing, though. You can do whatever you want. Don't touch that hair. Do not touch that hair.
Here's another thing. We do not have the money for any more Bee Gees songs.
I know that's...
Tell by the way I use my welcome me. No time to talk.
Oh, no. What he said, actually, was he said a lot of the stuff, like, Mirisch was the one who goes, Laurence Olivier, I'll get him. And he goes, and John Williams, I'll get him. He goes, these people wouldn't have taken my calls, Badham is going. But he said Mirisch called him. I was like, Larry, you're going to be in Dracula.
And come on. It's a cliche about that man's acting, but come on.
He's so good.
And yes, he's incredibly hammy in The Jazz Singer.
Oh, God.
And yes, he has
shit. That's
moments,
years after this, but yeah.
And he has moments in this that are slightly heavy-handed, but at the same time, this is a good Van Helsing, and the first
good Van Helsing
with the right accent.
Yes,
he is doing a Dutch accent for Van Helsing.
Though, not the first person they went to. They first offered the part of Van Helsing to Donald Pleasance, who said, "I just did this." In Halloween, he thought Van Helsing was too much like Dr. Loomis. I'll play Dr. Seward, which I'm going. That character's more like Dr. Loomis.
Well, I mean, he is another psychiatrist. The character is very different.
In this version, though, they really make it a two-hander of the vampire hunters with him and Van Helsing, though, for stretches of it, where I am going like, oh, he is going full Loomis by the time he's running around with Van Helsing.
The Seward take in this, even though Pleasance is great, I just keep going, man, this is just a weird take. With him constantly snacking and...
You know what? Badham talked about that. That's one of my favorite things is he goes, and literally at the end of every take, he would say his last line and immediately eat something. And they would, and he's like, why are you doing it? He goes, because then the editor can't cut away from me immediately. They have to stay on me for a couple more seconds.
That's great. That's him thinking ahead of going, oh, crap, I'm going to be on screen with Olivier.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight for all of the screen I can get.
Those guys, I guess, were good buddies, because my favorite comment I read from Pleasance is he goes, you know, I didn't do... We only did the one Dracula movie, and Larry... I love that he called him Larry. He goes, Larry and I thought it'd be a good laugh.
I hope they had a good time doing it. They're both quite good.
They are, I mean, very... Well, they were always good. Even in the shitty Halloween 4, 5, 6... Pleasance still rules in those movies. He's still great, even in the shitty ones.
You know, we don't need to keep informing the audience that we love Donald Pleasance.
No,
we do.
He's always been one of my favorites. Still
the once and future Blofeld, because I have a feeling once all movies become just digitally recreating people, they'll have a Bond movie that'll have Donald Pleasance as Blofeld again.
And Connery as Bond, and we'll just do that whole thing. Yeah. I'm on board for that.
Man.
Yeah, no, and we've talked about it before, but yeah, unquestionably, no one's ever going to touch that Blofeld performance. It's too good. It's perfect. I wish he had been in all the other ones Blofeld appeared in, because I've talked about my issues with Charles Gray. I've talked about my issues with Telly Savalas. Honestly,
I can only say word to your mother.
Honestly,
and I hope you'll make sure your mom gets that word.
I will make sure that I pass that on to her. I've said this before, and it's true. Waltz is second by default.
Yeah.
Because he's good. He's not, like, amazing. He's good. Everybody else is kind of bad. Like, that's the thing that gets... Bad
in ways. And Charles Gray,
Charles Gray is a horrible choice for the part. Like, he's just so campy. And Telly Savalas isn't even bothering to be anything other than Telly Savalas. He's just doing Kojak. True. Like, I've always just been like... The tete-a-tetes with him and Bond, and you got Lazenby, who's a little stiff, although I think is not as bad as people make him out to be.
No, certainly not.
No, I of course, I'm not alone in saying that he would have gotten better.
He needed a second one. I
think had he done another one, he would have crushed it. Like you could see he had a lot of the right qualities, but he just was a little nervous.
Grow into it.
He was a little, and I think honestly he took the right approach of like, let's not, make waves on this first one.
Watching Connery and Dr. No is embarrassing. That guy doesn't know what he's doing yet. It took another one. No, it's a joke. He was perfect right out of the box.
Literally, he stepped on screen and he was the most iconic spy cinema's ever seen.
We're a little off topic.
Yeah, because I will always
in our
head
love
that
of these
way.
things.
But there is a Bond connection here that actually brings us right to the beginning of this movie, and that is the inclusion of, I didn't even have to see the credit. Maurice Binder did work on this movie, all right?
Yeah.
When we get all the weird blown out laser effects and all the stuff, I'm like, oh, God, we're in a Bond movie. I know who made this. And there
well,
is
that's
his name.
also, that's fresh visual effects. That's, for that time, lasers as a visual element was still brand new.
Oh, man, Badham is talking about all this a lot on his thing where he's just going like, they tried to talk me out of it. But I said, nah, this is going to be exciting. And he goes, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't work. I still like it.
I'm glad he has he can look back and go, I got caught up in the time, because that is a trendy thing that at the time probably was stunning. And now you look at it and it's so cheesy.
Apparently,
apparently
though, Universal was like, this is a little trippy, isn't it? And he goes, I think it'll work. I guess.
Man.
Yeah. And he's still like, I still like it. People tell me it's not good, though.
There's a flapping bat and some blue lasers. That's what we're getting at.
Yeah. And then I love this, though. The way we push in on the castle. Fast, though. It's not like a slow thing. We're flying right in at the castle.
Yeah.
Over our opening credits, which I like that. Because once the thing, I'm just immediately, this movie's got me because I'm like, yes, urgency. I love it. Here we go.
And we can immediately talk about the biggest change that is made.
Yeah, and Badham and Richter both talk about this, of course. So, yeah, go ahead.
It's actually not a bad idea. Yeah. And in fact, in my own radio adaptation, which I'm still working on, I decided to cut to immediately the arrival of Dracula in the new country. Of course, in mine, I eventually do go back and flash in as flashback all the stuff that happens at Castle Dracula. This movie decides we're just going to start with Dracula arriving in Whitby on the ship. We do not have Jonathan Harker go to Castle Dracula. There's no vampire brides, and most of the dialogue, the classic dialogue that we had in those scenes, gets chopped up and put in later parts of this movie, delivered to different characters. Yeah. So we do get Children of the Night. We do get various things from the original part, but it's just sprinkled later. Yeah. We cut Castle Dracula pretty much out of it. Boom. He's in England.
I mean, that was something Richter talks about when he went back, and the first thing he did was he said he took the entire novel and outlined it like a movie, and then sort of saw it like, and he said he thought in terms of good screenwriting, lose this and get right to Dracula coming to London because that's where we need to start. Like that was Richter's take, was we just got to get this thing going, and then that way we get to meet him with the rest of society meeting him. And he said that makes him more mysterious, and it's just sort of this guy comes out of nowhere. I like it in this movie. I don't think like, oh man, every adaptation should use this, but for this movie, I like it.
Yeah, no, I don't mind it. Yeah. I think that opening section can bog some things down in some adaptations.
And we've seen some versions that have really overstayed its welcome with those sequences.
Or you look like that was half the movie. Yeah. There's no reason that should be half the movie. That's just to introduce the weirdness and have Jonathan Harker in Transylvania.
Here, though, we start in media res on the Demeter, and shit's going to... This is a real grabber of an opening, I think. Like, all of a sudden, we've got this... We see these crates, and we hear animal noises, and dudes are getting their throats ripped out, and you're like, oh, shit!
Essentially, the sailors, and there's only a few left, they're speaking in Romanian or Greek or something. Yeah. But they're basically aware that they've tracked down the source of the evil on board, and they grab the crate, which is, as we know, that's got to have Dracula in it. Yeah. And they're going to try and toss it off the ship. Yeah. And while they're doing that, the captain is he's strapping himself to the wheel.
Love it. Yeah.
With the cross in his hand.
Great. But then as they're lifting this crate, this clawed, kind of wolfish, kind of human hand comes out and just tears this dude's throat out. And of course, as the resident gorehound on the show, I'm like, oh,
Yeah, we
I
do.
like
We get
it.
a throat tear
And this
immediately.
movie isn't, once again, it's not explicit in its violence either, but there are definitely moments where all of a sudden there's some bloodletting in it.
Yeah.
It earns its R rating, but it doesn't overdo it.
Right. And then we see an actual wolf, not a wolf man, leap out of the
This
casket.
does all the transformations. He becomes a wolf. He becomes a bat. He becomes the mist and the fog or whatever. You know, they do it all.
And he crawls down the sides of the
and it looks good. It doesn't look like the weird Louis Jourdan.
Mostly the part with him and Lucy.
Yeah,
where
him and Lucy doesn't look as great. But on his own, the physicality Langella's giving it, I like better than the weird, like, okay, I'm going to actually look like a bat. And you're like, it doesn't look right, though. Here, he is crawling down like an animal still, but it's more human and predatory.
It is better shot.
Yeah, well, because, and Badham's a better director.
But here we have an actual wolf. Now, it's not black. Again, I'm nitpicky.
Oh, God. Oh, boy. It's going to be this kind of podcast.
No, I'm just saying if you're... Okay, all right. But it is an actual wolf. It's not a golden retriever.
No, it's a real wolf, and it actually seems scary. Yes. And the noises, the sound design of it sounds great.
Yeah, it's good.
Snarling and
stuff. Then he's up on deck. He's killed the two guys below deck. And then the captain is that poor fucker, man.
Yeah.
He's done for.
He is. And then I do like the way it cuts from that guy's about to die to, boom, we're in the sanitarium and everybody's screaming. That's good editing.
This sanitarium is real open, by the way.
It really is. Everybody's just going. I am going like, I don't know how good a Dr. Seward is.
He's got, what I loved is
I kept thinking, just hanging out.
I was like, here's another movie where Donald Pleasance is one of the world's worst psychiatrists.
Yeah. He did a lot of these. I don't know. Do you know? Are you familiar? I just watched this movie recently, and once again, I'm taking us off topic, but because Shout just put it out and I'd never seen it. Do you remember Alone in the Dark with Donald Pleasance? Where he is he's a psychiatrist running a mental institution, and it's this like state of the art, everything is electronically controlled, and then the power goes out, so all the patients get out and attack the town nearby, and Jack Palance it's Jack Palance and Martin Landau are the two psychos who are running rampant at it's good. It's it's kind of an unsung gem. I really enjoyed it. And then it's Donald Pleasance and Dwight Schultz from the A-Team are the two psychiatrists, the veteran and the newbie, who have to stop the madness.
Wow.
It's like
You're saying Mad Dog Murdoch is in charge of getting those crazies?
He's the young lead of the movie. He's the earnest doctor who's not sure about Donald Pleasance's ways, you know. It's super fun. I really enjoyed it. It's like 1981 or 2 maybe. It's a fun, weird little gem that I will
add it to my list.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And Jack Palance and Martin Landau are just devouring scenery.
I can only imagine that every single frame of the film has bite marks in it.
Those guys are hamming it up like nobody's business. It's fun. It's fun.
Do they both have their own respective psychoses, so they have different things to play?
100%, absolutely. Because Landau is more the like low-key crazy, and of course, Palance is the snarling, wild-eyed one with an axe. You know.
Oh my God, he was born to carry an axe.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah, Jack Palance is a crazed axe murderer. Come on, perfect cast. Anyway.
Someday we need to do a podcast where we talk about Hawk the Slayer, but today's not that day.
You know what? It's in contention for next year on the action shelf. So
nice.
I'll put you down if we add it to the calendar.
It's no Ator the Fighting Eagle, but I'll. God, sorry, we're talking about terrible sword and sorcery movies.
We haven't done any of those yet. That's a thing we want to get into next season on the action shelf.
There's so many to choose from.
Sword and sandal kind of things. So anyway, we're in the sanitarium. Everybody's screaming. Donald Pleasance is like, "What's going on here?" Yeah, I will say, right from all these patients screaming and Donald Pleasance trying to calm down, I'm like, oh my God, he is Dr. Loomis in this thing.
Yeah. Suddenly a little super thing comes up and says, Haddonfield, Illinois.
I know, it might as well. Lucy is also works in the sanitarium with her father, kind of.
Well, the sanitarium, and this is true to the book, the sanitarium is also the manor home in which Seward lives.
Yeah, and that's in
If
the
Lucy's his daughter.
that's in
She
the
lives
31
there.
movie too. That's in the Lugosi as well.
And she apparently helps him. So, you have one of the crazy ladies going, where's Lucy? She needs to help me with my baby. So one of the crazies, that's right, I'm being very politically incorrect, but one of the nut jobs.
We're talking in 1913 terminology here, all right?
Sure. No, this is strictly one of the imbeciles. Anyway,
one of these fucking loons is
one of the patients has a small child, and apparently Lucy often helps take care of the little baby.
Yeah, which is
she's calling for Lucy, and I was
surprised that it was a real baby. I thought it was going to be a thing where she was like a crazy woman,
a baby doll
who
or
thinks
something.
she has a baby.
Well, we find out why they
it's a real
decided to
baby.
make it a real baby later in the movie, and it's another fairly clever way of including something from the book, but changing it. But anyway, regardless, so where is Lucy? And then we find out Lucy is hanging out with Mina, her best friend, in the house.
Yeah.
And they're in their 90s, not transparent 90s.
No, we're not in Hammer. This is a classy picture.
This is classy all the way.
Yeah. And we find out Lucy has been accepted to a law firm, which is interesting because that doesn't really ever come back, but it's sort of this idea that she's a more modern woman.
Yes, which actually is true of Mina in the book, except for it's not law school, she's a teacher. But it's another thing where Mina, and in this case Lucy, there's one of the women who's kind of a modern gal,
right,
who isn't as rich,
right,
but has very progressive ideas. The other one is flighty and rich and pretty, and loves the other one, but she has so many suitors. In this case, we're flipping the names.
Yeah.
Mina is a sickly one who's the friend.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, her name is Mina Van Helsing.
Van Helsing.
Mina is Van Helsing's daughter, and we get a couple of references to that, and she has Laurence Olivier's photo on her.
It's an interesting idea.
nightstand.
I understand it from a screenwriting standpoint, where they're going like,
Sure,
this will be the thing that invests Van Helsing instantly. This is why he would immediately come out here. I follow that.
No, all these changes make sense. It's just I sit there going,
They're all very screenwritery changes. They are very much, which is what W.D. Richter describes in his interview. He goes, I looked through the book. I just thought, okay, this is the better for the movie version. This is going to flow better as a film if we do this and that and here and there. And
why not?
all of it, I mean, like I said, I really like it. I think this movie works in general, like as a film.
In general, I think the third act I've got a lot of problems with, but we'll talk about it when we get there.
Okay.
But anyway, so yes, Lucy is our lead, and played by Kate Nelligan.
Yeah, who I think is pretty good.
She's fine. She was a real name of the time.
Oh yeah.
Eye of the Needle. That was with Donald Sutherland. By the way,
like
she almost was paired with him again.
I like that movie a lot. Oh man, I didn't know this. We'll talk about her again. Come Wolf.
Yes, we will. Yeah, I saw that too. That's cool.
A very interesting movie. I'm excited to talk about.
So essentially, Lucy is looking after Mina.
Yeah, she gets called away to help with the baby in the sanitarium, which almost immediately upon Lucy leaving the room, Mina's like, I'm going to go outside.
This is hilarious. She gets up out of bed, looks out of the window, which apparently has a great view of the coastline.
Yeah.
And she can see the Demeter.
Yeah.
The storm it's all stormy.
This is where the screenwriting logic gets a little silly, though, because it's like, well, it'd be beneficial if the ship crashed right in front of Seward's house. And you're like, yeah, but that's awful convenient, isn't it?
Yes, that's what we're dealing with here. A lot of convenient things that you're like, what? But anyway,
in some ways, it's a little
she sees the ship crash.
Yeah.
And instead of like going, hey, Dr. Seward, I know you're busy, but maybe we should let someone know. And they have phones, by the way. It's 1913.
Yeah.
That a ship crashed. Instead, she runs out on her own in her nightgown.
Yep. Into the wreck of the ship. This
is what I found hilarious. They are indicating there's a storm, there's rain, and her hair never gets wet.
No. Nobody's
hair in
this movie isn't perfect at all times.
That's true. She runs down the cliff to the beach. There's the crash ship. Everyone's dead that she can see.
Except for one guy. One guy is very much alive.
Yes. she sees the dog, as in the wolf,
Mm-hmm.
jump off, and it runs into a cave. And for some reason, she's like, I'm going to go follow that doggy. And she falls into a
Wouldn't
cave.
you? I'd follow the dog.
Yeah. And there is a person who we don't see his face,
Yeah.
collapsed on the floor of the cave.
Don't have
He's
to be
wearing
Sherlock
like a
Holmes
fur
to figure out
coat.
who this is, though.
I never figured it out.
As soon as that
Um,
olive-skinned hand came out, I'm like, that's Langella.
Yeah, so apparently in this version, he changes from wolf and basically plays dead so that he'll be found by this hottie.
I actually like not Lucy or not me. By the way,
Mina, yes, Mina.
my notes are constantly Lucy scratched out Mina because I would confuse
Yes.
them because I know them that way. I not Mina finding him, but I like him being the survivor and known that it's not a mystery. It is like, oh, Count Dracula was coming over and he did survive the thing.
It is pretty clever that
again,
they basically say that he was on board and he's the only survivor.
It's more
and can we
hiding
please
in plain
get his
sight
crate
thing.
sent to his estate?
It's more of that thing where it's like, I'm a guy. I just I came over. Oh dear God, I was in this. Like I like that.
And apparently he was in a cool ass fur coat, which is supposed to kind of like wink at, he was just a wolf, get it?
Yeah. It's a little on the nose, but that's all right. Let's see. So then it's the next morning, and in rolls Jonathan Harker in his fancy motor car.
Beep, beep. He's very jaunty.
He is. This is
in
Trevor
his feathered
Eve.
70s hair.
Trevor Eve is a good actor. I've seen in a lot of things. I don't think he's great in this, and some of that is the writing.
No.
Once again, Harker, my God, there aren't many good depictions of Harker, I don't think.
Well, he is, as I've decided to call him, he's one of genre fiction's greatest cucks.
He really is.
That's the whole...
I will say what you will about the accent work, but Keanu is the strongest of the Harkers. A lot of it is I think because Coppola uses him better.
Coppola also...
And Keanu is cool in a way none of these other... Like, he isn't... And the accent may be rough. What I'm saying is he isn't a dullard, let me say that. He's a little... There's more to him.
Well, Jonathan Harker has a great arc in the book, and Coppola actually kept it, which is he's the innocent who finds the horror first.
Yeah.
He's traumatized by it, and then, because of the love of his wife, he finds this inner courage and becomes a fucking vampire killer.
Yeah.
So that's a great arc, but most of the time, you're right, they play him as being just this dullard who, just by default, because he's around, helps Van Helsing destroy a vampire, and usually it's just like,
and this
oh,
movie,
Mina, oh, my love.
This movie is so guilty of it. In fact, not only is he, oh, Mina, oh, my love, and this he's like, would you fucking looking at Count Dracula?
Well, here they play that, well, they give him one thing to play. He and Lucy are a young couple who are, they're DTF.
Oh, yeah.
That's the whole thing, is they cannot keep their hands off each other, but you get the impression he will never be enough for her. They're kind of indicating that even though he's nice and she's hot for him, she's dissatisfied. So Dracula's that mysterious, seductive thing she cannot deny. And that makes him mad. So he gets petulant towards the end of the movie. He was like,
and I'm going like, nah, I kind of get why you would go with Dracula over this guy.
Well, this is one of the only ones in the canon, besides Coppola's, which kind of leans there too, which is like, well, Mina, in this case Lucy, really does love Dracula, even though he's a monster. And kind of, if they hadn't killed him, she would have been happily his vampire bride. So this is a thing where at the end, when Jonathan, she kind of leans toward him and he's kind of like, like he's not having it. You've been touched and defiled. And then she's like, you know what? Doesn't matter. I still love that black cape in the sky.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Anyway.
Interesting ending. So he Harker rolls up in his motor car. And he's like, yes, what's going on here? And he's looking around and poking about on the ship and they're like, hey, it's the strangest thing. Everyone's had their throat ripped out. ripped out.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know what that's about. That wouldn't have
There's the
happened.
captain over there. He strapped himself to the wheel. It's crazy. And all these crates, most of them broke open, but they only had dirt in them.
That's so weird. Everybody's just, that's very strange. Then this other guy shows up, and we are introduced to Milo Renfield, played by Tony Haygarth, who's a character actor from a handful of British things.
They gave Renfield a first name, which he doesn't have in the novel.
I'm fine with that. I mean, he is a guy in the world.
In the novel, he's R. Renfield. You only get a first initial. They decided to fuck the R and just call him Milo Renfield.
Milo Renfield. And he's here, and he's really giving it to Harker.
Yeah, he's like what we never really find out what his job is, but he knows of the sale of Carfax Abbey by Harker to Dracula, and he's like, well, I hope you're happy that this ship crashed. And Harker's like, I had nothing to do with it. He goes, yeah, well, none of this would have happened if you hadn't sold that count a bill of goods. He's basically saying, I can't believe you sold that destroyed pile of rocks to this poor European.
I mean, this scene is kind of Renfield is acting as Dracula's guy, right? Like, but he is going like, yeah, you screwed over my guy on that house. Come on, man. He's gonna take a bath on that property. Trust me. There's no way to flip it.
So he's anti-Harker already, and he's not even, turned into
Seward
a slave of the master.
It's Seward who shows up here and calms everybody down. He goes, hey, why don't you let Count Dracula know that he can have dinner at my place tonight, all right? We'll welcome him in and be hospitable.
Since my daughter's friend found him on the beach.
Exactly.
It's the least we can do.
Exactly. And so Lucy and Seward and Harker start to drive off in his car, and they're just making out, man.
Yeah, and Seward's like, eyes on the road.
Yeah. I like he's like, save it for when you're married. Good Lord. This used to be a nice town. You and that Ben Mears boy out at the lake.
You're getting them mixed up again.
Oh yeah, whatever. It's all the same thing. Vampires, whatever. But I do think it's another thing where it's like, oh, in proper society? How could you?
You two with the mouths on the other mouths? That's crazy.
They did say, Badham did say that Pleasance was always trying to add more humor to his performance. Always trying to pitch bits and jokes, and he always wanted to get more comedy in here.
I won't say that's the right take, but I will say I could tell, and that's not bad. That's not how I see Seward at all. Yeah. But for this movie, there's not a lot of that around.
Yes.
Dracula gets some nice zingers in there, but making Seward competent yet slightly comical. I did like the bit later when he's going, what did you give me in it? And he goes, laudanum. And Van Helsing's like, Jesus, really? God. Yeah. And then later on, they did a bit where it's like Lucy's sick, and Van Helsing goes, did you give her laudanum? And then Seward goes, my own daughter? No. Which is kind of funny. Because he's like going, yeah, I loaded your daughter up with laudanum, but I wouldn't give my own daughter that stuff.
That'd be crazy. Come on. What am I, a monster? Badham talked about, he didn't use all of the stuff he did, but he said it was Pleasance was very engaged, which was good about that. Like, because especially hearing,
sounds like a weird dodge. He was very enthusiastic.
I mean, from the sound of how he was on the set of Halloween the year before, though, I think I'd rather take that than drunk, angry Pleasance, who kept talking about how shitty the script was.
I kind of think that Pleasance's involvement, his commitment to it. I mean, he's always going to give a good performance because he's Pleasance.
I mean, that's the thing. I think with Halloween, you can't believe when you hear like, oh, he was like drunk the whole time. He's amazing.
Right, exactly. But I think with the budget and with the director, like if he totally thought this was going to be a prestige thing, I think he behaved.
Yeah. And also, I think on this one, it probably helped that his pal Larry is in it.
Yeah.
All right, like that helps. It's like, come on, Larry, let's go do Dracula and have a good time.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the drinking was probably scaled back a bit.
Yeah.
Though him and Larry together, I bet they could.
Oh,
knock a
I
few back.
bet on the weekends off they tore up the town, man. But
Larry, tell me another story about you and Danny Kaye trying to avoid the press during your romantic liaison.
Laurence Olivier gay? No.
Sorry to have to.
No, of course he was.
Okay.
He
may have been bi because apparently he truly did love, Vivian Leigh, but
yeah, but that
but
also
he loved him some Danny Kaye.
Oh,
if you know
sure,
what I mean.
sure. And Danny Kaye? What?
Yeah, that's the shocker.
Yeah, I can't. I've never saw it. That
every time I look at the court jester or the inspector general, I think that guy's a real coxman.
This guy's fucking left and right in court jester, right? Come on. He was doing every gal.
He was doing young Angela Lansbury in that movie.
He had to.
It is weird seeing young Angela Lansbury. Whenever you see her young, I mean, she's cute, but you're like, you really didn't come into your own until you were an older woman.
Well,
did
it's
you?
so interesting that, like, I love The Manchurian Candidate, where she's playing older.
God. Yes, at that point, she's actually playing older than
That's
her
what
age.
I love about that, though, is like, still, oh my God, Manchurian Candidate is an amazing movie.
Oh my God, we could do a whole podcast about Manchurian Candidate.
I've got the criterion of that.
Well deserved.
Yes. Let's see. Oh yeah, I do like when it just cuts to, they mention the boxes of dirt, and it just cuts to Renfield by himself hauling these things into Carfax Abbey.
Yeah.
And he's kind of being like, you stupid son of a bitch, Dracula, making me do all of his work. And
That's kind of funny, but I keep thinking, and I get it again from a screenwriting perspective, but I gotta go, dude, I'm sorry. If those are wooden crates full of dirt, each one of those is about 300 pounds.
Yes.
And there is no way this guy is just single-handedly hauling them in.
Yeah. And so Dracula appears at the top of the stairs. And like I said, like, he's so muttering and he's upset. It's almost in like, what did you say, Renfield?
And then, this isn't good. I know they wanted it to be good. But then we get...
When he comes at him as the bat?
Yeah. When we get animated Batman Dracula for half a second and then fake bat.
I think the other one they do is better when Harker swings the shovel at him, because there's the motion blur of the shovel, so you're not as focused on what's happening with Dracula. It's all happening in a thing. That's better. It hides the effect a little bit more. Here you can really focus on what they're doing.
Yeah. And maybe for 1979, but I look at it and go, oh, that's not good. It's better than what they did in the 40s, but
yeah,
still.
It's better than anything we saw in Hammer, my God.
Yep.
When he turned into a full-on cartoon and Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Yes. But this gives me a chance to talk about my problem with Carfax Abbey. You ready?
Okay. Because Badham's very proud. So
it is a beautiful set. That is not an abbey. They just swapped out Castle Dracula. That is Castle Dracula, and it looks amazing.
I'm with you.
But if you're talking about an English abbey, even a beaten up, torn down, I'm sorry, all that Gothic architecture and demonic statuary and fireplace. I'm like going, that's not an abbey where monks would have been. This is Castle Dracula. They just. We didn't get a chance to have our Castle Dracula, so now Carfax Abbey's Castle Dracula, and I'm not having it.
Actually, Badham said that as much in his thing. He goes, well, we cut all the stuff at the castle, but I thought, well, we'll still give him the castle.
Yeah, sorry, man. I want an abbey to look like an abbey.
But not so much in the movie's defense, but the 31 movie does this too. In fact, it's the same set as Castle Dracula, basically, when we get to... They both have those massive Gothic staircases and...
The staircase isn't really the problem. I mean, that's fine too. And they at least redressed, obviously, Castle Dracula when it becomes Carfax Abbey. Yeah. And they just made it more austere and empty, which an abbey would be. Yeah. It would not be that ornately Gothic and all that nonsense. And also, mostly in the 31 film, we spend our time in the basement of Carfax Abbey where all the coffins are. But anyway, it is a gorgeous looking set. And if they said this is Castle Dracula, I would have gone, woo!
I'm in the camp of I do not care because I love this set. I love it so much.
Well, you know what you can do?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later, what you can do.
This is, by the way, the same production designer as The Omen, and Badham said it was recommended to him by his friend Dick Donner.
Nice.
So, and The Omen's also great. I have thought about at some point we could do a mini-series of Campbell and Jones Meet the Devil and do all the demonic movies like The Omen and Exorcist and stuff.
That would also be, I mean, because you could go all the way back to the 30s and 40s with that too.
And all the Hammer movies and stuff like that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
we'll be spending a lot of time with the Dark Lord.
There would be a lot there. But there's also enough variance, I feel like, in that we would see all kinds of different movies.
True.
In and around that. Anyway, that's something for the down the road, but I was thinking about all the things like that I would love to cover. So anyway, he comes at Renfield as this bat, and we
latches himself onto his neck.
Yeah. And I think we cut away at that point, or at least that's what I have in my notes here. Because
we do.
It's
a hard
cut. Harker and Seward, they're all at the dinner table, and Harker's just going like, I just can't understand what would make those throat wounds. And Seward's going like, it was the dog. He goes, they had a dog on board. It probably did that. And
I like when they talk about the dog, he goes, it was probably the ship's mascot.
And Harker just being like, I don't think so. Like, that doesn't seem like...
I like the way Harker just goes, is that a thing?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
That doesn't seem right. There's no way.
Sound like a thing.
And also, like, it tore everybody's throat. What? Like what is this? Like a golden retriever just ripping throats? Maybe a German shepherd? I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter because this is all just chatter until the servant at the door comes in and goes, Count Dracula. Love it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And the way Langella comes in, he just owns this room. And this is something I saw. There isn't an interview with Langella on the Shout Factory, unfortunately, but I did see him do one of those career retrospective things on YouTube, and he talked about that was kind of his thought process playing Dracula. Was he's like, I don't have to be big because I own everyone. Like, he would just come into a room and just be like, everyone's beneath me. There's no reason I have to show off my power.
That is a great take.
Yeah.
And it works.
And then you totally see that right from this shot of him coming in this room. And it's just like, yes, Dracula is here.
Man, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of little tweaks, Seward's second-hand man in the asylum is Mr. Swales.
Mr. Swales, which is a nod to the book. Obviously, it's not.
Right. Not the same character.
And it's not Martin, unfortunately.
And, well, there is a sort of overall helper also who's below Swales, played by Sylvester McCoy.
Thank you for saying this, because who do I have with me here?
There he is,
Sylvester
Dr.
McCoy
Who.
action figure with his umbrella and his question mark vest. Because
I tried to count, and I think so far in our podcast of watching the classic monster films, we've encountered 4 Doctors Who, I think, so far.
Baker, McCoy, Troughton. Who's the other one? Wait, Baker, Troughton, McCoy. Who else did we see? Did we see? We didn't see it. Did we see it? No, we didn't see a Colin Baker.
No, I was thinking maybe, was it John Hurt?
Oh, yeah, I think we did see a John Hurt. I know we'll encounter more.
But we're running into some Doctors Who.
Yeah, because I keep grabbing my figures. Because, yes, I'm such a cool guy. I have action figures of all the Doctors.
I just happen to have an action figure of guy who played Swales. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a custom piece. You paid hundreds for it to be made.
I did.
It's
a custom.
A custom. There's a couple custom things that I've been like, well, no, that's a waste of money. But also,
you've got to stop. You've got to stop.
Yeah,
there are people starving in the world, and you're buying those. Just stop.
I'm having custom figures made. Yeah, so he comes in and instantly, Dracula's the life of the party.
He's great. He's charming, and he's doing the thing that I love. And also, this was in 31. It's, I am a stranger to your ways, and yet I know a lot more than you think I do. So therefore, I'm exotic, but I'm approachable.
Well,
and here, he's not doing an accent, but again, from the novel, Dracula had studied English so well that
Yes.
Jonathan Harker comments, "Man, I don't even really hear much of an accent on you."
When I
So Bela Lugosi was not right in
yeah.
doing the
Well, the
Hungarian
thing
thing.
the thing I like about Langella, he's not doing an accent, but he does sound regal and educated and well
He
spoken.
does.
He's a
And when he
gentleman.
is called upon, and I did love this, there's a few times he's called upon to say Romanian words.
Hmm.
He studied those. They just come out.
Well,
They're just
I think
perfect.
if there's
Ah.
one thing I do know about Langella is this is a dude who does his work. He digs
Mhm.
into parts. This is not a guy who's ever gonna do something halfway.
Yeah.
He's just that kind, which I love those kinds of actors, and you can see it how measured and their performances are.
And this is where a lot of the stuff that we missed out because they cut the first part of the novel off comes
Yeah.
in, where they're going, "Oh, I can't believe that you bought that crumbling abbey." And actually, I think Harker says, "I feel guilty about it." He goes, "No." He goes, "My family is very old. I would not have felt comfortable in a new
Oh, I
home."
like that, and he gets into a little bit of his family history there. And I
Yep.
also love this moment when they're all having the soup, and the waiter comes over, and it's just like, because it's still a full bowl, and he goes, "No, I'm quite done."
Yeah. Yeah. You can imagine that he may have faked or had a sip or two, and then
Yeah.
it's like, I don't need any more,
Yeah,
thanks.
it's something
Great.
I love.
And they give him the line. We have to say, they give him the classic line, and he does a Louis Jourdan with it. He tosses it away,
But
and it's great.
it works, unlike some of the Jourdan stuff. It really works when he's like,
Right.
"Oh, I don't drink wine." Like,
Yeah, he goes, "Oh, no, thank you. I don't drink wine," and just moves on. It's like,
Whereas-
oh, he just drops it.
Because the thing, in some ways he's doing the opposite of Lugosi, which I love Lugosi, but my whole thing in that was that Dracula had no chill. He was always, "I don't drink wine." Like he's always
Well,
about.
the
It's
thing
great.
I
It's great. I
like
love
about
that.
it,
I
as
love
I
that
said
in that
before,
movie.
is, well, yes, Lugosi's Dracula is the outsider, is the alien,
Yeah.
who is obviously off. Something's off about him, but he wants to worm his way in. I
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
But this is also great. This is a Dracula who really did study and really could slide easily into society. He's had 500 years to watch as the world changed around him. And he's like, "You know what? I'm ready."
Yeah.
And there's a part in this where I think it's Lucy talking to him. It's like, "Well, it's not good to get too obsessed with the past, or don't, lose yourself to the past." He goes, "You're absolutely right." He's like going, "Yeah, you got to keep an eye on the future," which for a character like Dracula, that's the whole thing. It's
Yeah.
like he's that old. All he can do is aim for immortality. Yeah, it's a good take.
We also have this,
I love both.
I love this. Yeah, I do too. And also really work for their respective productions.
Yeah.
I love when this one servant cuts his finger, and it's just it's not like a full on, like, it's just sort of a turn, and he kind of acknowledges it, and he's staring at it, and he's kind of checked out of the conversation, and then he just comes back into the conversation. But it's just
He's like,
he just clocks
"And
it.
we're back."
He just clocks the blood. He doesn't like salivate.
That
or
was
anything.
another
It's like,
them fitting the stuff in. It's like, oh, right, we don't have Jonathan Harker cutting himself while shaving, so instead, Mr. Swales accidentally cuts himself while, I don't know, serving food.
Yeah.
And Dracula just sees it, and he's like,
I do love this.
and I'm back.
I do love this too, where they talk, where Seward's like, "Well, have you come to Whitby to settle down?" It's like, "Oh, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
I've come to England for more life, like to live. This guy's gonna live it up. I want to go to London. I want to be around." And he just keeps saying, like, "I want to be around life."
It's kind of funny, though. That's great, and that is kind of the whole point. But this, because of the way that the changes they've made in this novel, in this movie, he never gets to London.
No,
in this
think that
movie,
was
it's
weird.
all Whitby. They're just staying in Whitby the whole time.
Yeah, I agree. That is interesting. He's more like, I'll get to London at some point, and then that'll be a party. But first, I'm gonna find me a gal in Whitby, and then what? The two of us will hit the town. Is that the idea here?
Maybe so.
Like, this is a Dracula with plans. We don't really get let in on the full extent of his plans, which I like. Like, this is a guy who wants to do stuff, but
yes,
it's not
similar.
step 1, step 2 leads to this, you know.
It's similar in the fact that he is just like in the novel and all the classic versions, he's kind of unable to get started in his plan. They shut Dracula down pretty early in his plan,
he's just
in the book
arrived,
and everything
basically.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, man, I got big plans. I'm going to take over the world. Oh crap! I shouldn't have gotten messed up with these two women.
This guy doesn't even take over. Well, that is something that we've seen time and again, and I've said that before. It really is like Dracula's got a weakness for the ladies. That's what does him in, man. If he wasn't messing around with Lucy and Mina, he probably could have gotten further with his plan.
John, why do you think I relate to this guy so much? Why do you think Dracula's my guy? That's my story, man.
If there's one thing I say about Brendan, it's like that guy's got a real weakness for the ladies.
Weakness for the ladies, always holding him back.
Yep. If only, man. If only you would stop being such a player. Maybe you could accomplish something.
Hey, don't hate the player. Hate the game, John.
So then Mina has a fainting spell here, and immediately Seward goes to get her some drugs for this headache she's complaining of, and Dracula's like, no, you'll pollute her blood. I'm like,
yeah, that's pretty good.
Nice. I love stuff like that. And instead he goes, no, I know an old family. My family we knew hypnosis basically is his thing. But he's doing like real hypnosis. He's not letting on that it's magic hypnosis, of course.
Right. And he's pretending that he's doing like clinical hypnosis.
Everyone is wrapped up in this except for Harker, who's like, fucking bullshit.
Well, also Seward's watching him like, are you challenging me?
Yeah.
I am the doctor here. There's a nice, like, he's just looking at him going, all right, buddy, let's see what you got.
Yeah.
Let's see what you got.
And, of course, he does hypnotize her. She's better, but still, she's just so sickly, this Mina. But then, oh, man, does he really lay on the charm here when he dances with Lucy. Mm-hmm. And this is where Harker's like, I don't fucking think so.
I will say that Lucy, right off the bat, it's not even like, I'm strangely compelled. It seems like Lucy right off the bat is like, thank God, because she's the one, while her friend is sick and laying on the couch, and then she wakes up and goes, I feel so much better. But Lucy's the one that's like going, no, let's keep the party going. Yeah. And then she's the one that says, will you dance with me, Count? She's basically going, I'm right here.
And then what I love is later in the night, Lucy and Harker meet up, and he's like, why'd you have to dance with that guy? And she's like, oh, what? Come on. And they just cut to Dracula looking down at them, being like, oh, good. Sowing seeds of distrust. Love it.
That's basically his whole thing. He's like, I got her. I got her.
Give it a week. He turns to Redfield, and he's just like, you watch, baby. They're going to break up.
I am in like Flint.
This Dracula is a real, as we were saying, this is a real player Dracula. Like, it does, like, once he sees Lucy, basically, he's just like, this is, fuck whatever other plans. This is step 1 right here.
Indeed.
Yeah. And it is an interesting thing when we talk about, it is like, oh yeah, I like her. I want to make her my bride. I've had other brides before. I'll have other brides after her. But right now, yeah, I am legitimately into this woman.
Yeah.
But he just knows that it's all disposable. It's not insincere, but
well, there's a little bit of the stuff later where he says, you will become like me, and then we will propagate my kind.
Right.
He basically is like going, I'm the last of my kind, and even though I've had so many wives, it's down to me and maybe you to start a whole vampire nation.
Ooh. Vampire Nation, by the way. That's coming to Fox, right?
Yeah. Trademark Brendan Jones, 2021.
Vampire Nation. Then we see him climbing down the side of the house because he sees them. He's already like on the roof of Seward's place, and he's like, good, that's going well. Okay, now on to the other girl. And he climbs down to her window, and he's scratching on the window in classic vampire fashion. But what you don't realize immediately is he's actually cutting out a piece of the glass so he can reach his hand in and open the window.
It's pretty cool, but all I could think was, dude, you can turn into mist. This whole, like,
it's a total, like, Mission Impossible.
Yeah, it's like a James Caan and Thief thing. Like, that's how I'm getting in.
It's almost just like he's just doing it to do it. He's just like, this will be cool.
Well, what's also hilarious is her reaction because she sees his face and the fact he's calling, and she's like, because he's hanging upside down.
Yep.
I mean, that's creepy. It's the guy from dinner and he's looking in at her.
Mm-hmm.
She's freaked out. The second he opens the window, she's like, all right then.
Yeah.
And leans back and goes,
is there supposed to be a hypnosis aspect to this, though? Because they do sort of push in on Langella's eyes here, which there's something that was brought up. Badham brings it up in the interview, and it's brought up on the IMDb that Langella actually has a condition where his eyes just sort of move.
Yeah,
and the studio was like, that's going to be distracting, but Badham's like, no, that's cool. Like that works for the character.
It's like what's his name? Taylor Vance. What's his name? That Vance. Character actor from Heavy and X-Files. Pruitt Taylor Vance. That's his name, right? Pruitt Taylor Vince, maybe.
That's let me look. I know
Heavy set character actor, and he's quite good.
You're right, Pruitt Taylor Vince. Yeah.
He has that exact same condition to a much worse degree, which actually, as he's said in many an interview, it has impacted his career. It's just, I acted in a play with a guy who did that when I was a teenager, and unfortunately, this guy was like 35 or something. I was a teenager when we were in the one-act play, and I did at one point say, "Can you stop doing that?" Which was incredibly insensitive. I just didn't know.
Right.
And he did take me back later and goes, "Man, I can't." Yeah. It's just, but Langella has it not to the same degree, which works. In this, it does work.
It does work,
but it's that thing of the restless, jittery eyes that go back and forth.
But I like where it's almost like he's just always scanning. He's just always interpreting. He's always like. And like
it's most clear when but I think he did it on purpose with the hypnotism scenes, because there's some control. Like you can actually let your control go, so it goes even more.
That's what,
and I think he did that.
Langella apparently told Badham, like, I can, like, if you find a point, I can stop him. And Badham's like, no, that's good. I like that. I want to emphasize it in places. In fact, so I think I
kept watching them throughout the movie to see if it was nonstop, and it's not. And that was great, because there are certainly, obviously, like confrontation scenes or big monologues, where he goes laser like. But then there are scenes where he's like, "I'm seducing you," and they're just going digga 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 back and forth.
I didn't know he had that condition until I watched the interview and read the IMDb. I thought it was just an acting choice on Langella's part to be doing this kind of like.
I can make my eyes do that, but it's not something where I can't stop them.
Right.
It's been a trick I've been able to do for a long time, which is kind of why I told that guy, "Can you just stop that?"
Yeah.
I can turn that on and off if I want. Can you?
So Mina gives up that neck here, and she gives it
up.
Good. Because the other thing is Langella's really like making out and stuff more than like. There's
a little bit of the Christopher Lee, like kiss the eye, kiss the neck, then start munching, then go for the carotid.
There's a little bit of that, and so he chows down. Meanwhile, Renfield wakes up unconscious in Carfax Abbey and has a sudden real taste for bugs.
Yeah, this is real quick and unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
First, he's like, who knows? He's been laying there for a day, and he wakes up. He's like, he hasn't had anything to eat. He goes to one of the pump that sinks and is like, I need some water. Oh, that's because it's an old. And he's like, I got nothing to drink, nothing to eat. And I'm stuck in this place. He goes, ooh, but look at that nice fat roach.
Yep. And he chomps down on that, and then Dracula.
Nicolas Cage is that one.
Yeah. He Dracula appears, and he's like, hey, you're gonna be loyal to me from now on, all right? And interesting, this Redfield is like, no!
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's like, this just drives him insane. It doesn't work. Like, he doesn't become his guy. I thought was an interesting take, where it's like, lock me up in the sanitarium,
Well, there's often a back and forth, even in the novel, where when he's fully under the spell, it's like anything for Master. But there are these moments where his own will breaks through, and he's like, you need to send Miss Mina away from here.
He jumps to that pretty quick in this thing.
Yeah, in this one, it is more like, I don't want to, but okay.
The next scene is a further example of Seward being a bad doctor, which is Lucy comes running and says, oh my God, Mina's not breathing. And Seward's like, all right, let me at her. And he just starts
the worst doctoring I've ever seen in my life.
Slapping her face and going, come on, breathe! Stop being stupid and breathe.
He just is smacking her face going, God damn it, I said breathe.
As if it's like she's just fooling, right? It's like, all right, breathe already. Come on.
And even Lucy's like, Dad, stop it. That's not going to do any good.
Quick.
And it doesn't matter. She's dead literally within a minute.
Quick, somebody get my belt. I need to take this thing farther.
Apparently he was just they took his license away because he kept smacking corpses going, come on,
just live already.
Coward dies.
Yeah. It suddenly turns into that scene from Airplane where they're all lined up to smack around the hysterical woman.
Right behind Stewart you see Jonathan Harker with a wrench smack it in his hand. God damn it. Yeah, it is funny. It's funny because it's Donald Pleasance. And again, every now and then in this movie, for being a pretty smart adaptation, I just go, come on, logically, no one in the room said he would do something else instead of smack her in the face.
I just love the idea of Pleasance being like, what should I do? What, just smack her around a little bit? Okay.
That's what he would do as a
This is a man who treated a dangerous psychopath by going, I have to destroy him. So, I don't know. Maybe
yes, the devil's eyes. Okay, all right, we got it.
Yeah, the devil's eyes, right. Move your ass, Lonnie. But and then he's like, oh, she's dead. Apparently my doctoring didn't work. But he's like, what are these? Puncture marks on her neck. How strange.
I haven't seen these before.
And then he calls for Van Helsing. He's on the phone. And this will come as no surprise based on this. This is all Pleasance. The whole thing about, what's that? Read that back to me. No, she
really.
It's not that she lied. She died. Yeah.
Oh God, the bit with whoever he's talking to is writing the note wrong.
That's where Badham said he was always pitching bits. He goes, that whole thing on the phone, all Donald.
All Donald. 100%.
Well, they also talked about he was just anytime he could get not just the food, but anytime he could get a prop, he just needed props. Like, he just always wanted something. I want a phone or a thing. Or they talk about... they apparently, Frank Langella was warned in advance. That guy is going to steal every frame. That is what Pleasance does. He will find a way to make the audience look at him. He's well known for being like this.
That's hilarious.
And it's always like, give me something. Give me business. Give me something to do.
Some actors are like that, though. Is like, a lot of the character work is done in the head, but sometimes it's about, holding this thing or, like Kingpin holding that cane. Vincent D'Onofrio, that makes him Kingpin to me.
Yeah. Well, and I do love the idea, though, that, like, it wasn't even, like when I said, like, he would eat something, they talk about, like, Badham says, all of a sudden he'd just have candy from his pocket. And we're like, nobody gave him that. He brought that candy himself. Like...
It's so great. I love this guy. He's like, you know what? I know this isn't my movie. I know I'm like fourth build or whatever, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to get as much of the attention as I can.
Yeah, Pleasance knows. He was third build. He is first under title.
Actually, that would make sense.
Frank Langella, Laurence Olivier, Dracula, also starring Donald Pleasance.
There you go.
So that's not bad.
No, that's not. And actually, it makes sense because Kate Nelligan certainly was on an upswing at this point, but she's not a household name.
Well, the way they talk about it on the special features, it was like, holy shit, we got Olivier and Pleasance in this thing. Like, that was a big deal that they got these guys. Because Langella was known, but not, once again, this is kind of what made him.
Right. No, he's basically coming out of the blue.
Right. But he was the talk of the town on Broadway was the thing. So he's got that cachet. Everybody's like,
and he doesn't do fangs, buddy. Nope. He doesn't do fangs.
I do love the idea of, this guy is a big hit on Broadway, and he's like, I will do it under two conditions. Like,
it's so great.
I 100% agree with him not wanting to do commercials in the costume.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and I'm like, because he's just like, come on, man, What am I?
I have to
a
admit,
puppet?
even with this enormous, as I said, this enormous Spider-Man movie about to come out. Yes, I've dated us again.
Yeah.
It seems weird to see that cast. They certainly don't need to work this hard, but seeing this cast make these awkward, cringy commercials about, I love getting together with my friends for the holidays, and then they cut to scenes from Spider-Man No Way Home, and
Yeah.
you're like, ugh,
Yeah.
you don't need to do this kind of promotion for that movie. It'll sell itself. But yes, that's always embarrassing. I'm glad it's not Frank Langella going, I really love sinking my teeth into sun-kissed orange soda or something. It's like, God, I'm glad he didn't do it.
God, just kill me already.
Yeah.
So then Harker runs over to Carfax, and Dracula's like, "Why, hello." This kind of turns into some of that stuff, right?
Why? No.
But I'm saying this is now he's at Carfax Avenue. We get some of that Dracula Harker stuff that you talked about was from the beginning of the book. He goes, because Dracula says, I was very sorry to hear about Mina. And Harker's like, you already know about that? He's like, well, news of death travels fast. That's good stuff. Dracula. Oh, yeah, he goes, and by the way, very sorry to hear about that. Where's that deed? I want to make sure we get this thing free and clear, you know? And then Harker's like, hey, I just got a question. All these boxes that were brought in for you, they're just full of soil. What's that about? He's like, oh, I do some gardening.
Yeah, he says, he goes, not just soil. It's Transylvanian dirt. Or basically he goes, I have an interest in botany.
Yeah. Soil for botany is what I wrote down, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost...
So he's basically saying, dude...
And you get this moment...
I've thought everything out.
Where he explains that to him, and he's almost just giving him a look of like, you got more questions, pal? Or
yeah, exactly. He's like going, I'm ready. Bring it on.
Satisfied? Son of a bitch.
Yeah, he does. He just mutters bitch under his breath.
That's what I thought, bitch. I'm working on a Dracula movie where he has a little bit different vibe. Harker leaving.
That's what I thought, bitch.
He really, my Dracula tells it like it is.
I would watch this movie.
Yeah. So he does say, he says, hey, let Lucy and Seward know that after the funeral, they can come hang out at my place. And he goes, I think you have somewhere to be, though. So he's like, of course you're invited, but I believe you'll be out of town.
Yeah, essentially, I think Harker's job is to pick up Van Helsing or something, which means he's going to travel. No, that's not right.
No, what is his job?
Remember what he was supposed to do.
I have no idea, actually. It was something about he needed to go out of town to finalize these documents or something.
Oh yeah, I guess
it's
so.
Something to do with the real estate aspect of
Basically, it is Dracula just saying, pity you won't be around to see me hit on your lady.
Because I'm going to be all up in her business. Once again, I'm spoiling things from my Dracula remake.
I know.
I like a Dracula with no subtext.
No. Wait, are you just admitting to my face you're going to try and get with my fiance?
You know it, baby.
Dracula just looks at him and goes, done deal.
Yeah. Oh, I already stole her, pal. Yeah, so he goes, Harker's driving home, and all of a sudden Renfield just pops out of the back of his car, and he's like, no, you have to get Lucy away from him. He's a madman, I tell you. He's evil. He's a monster.
And he's also going, get me away from here.
Yeah.
Get me away from this terrible place. And Harker's like, I'm sorry.
You better believe we cut from this to Renfield being locked up in the sanitarium.
Yep. He knew just where to take the guy.
He's like, well, good thing I'm already driving past the sanitarium tonight. I have a yes, Seward, I have a late night delivery for you. This maniac. So they put him in a straitjacket, and no, he's not in the straitjacket yet. He's in the straitjacket later because he won't stop eating the bugs.
That's right.
So then it's Mina's funeral, and yeah, Harker's got to go out of town. And he's just real mopey and like, yeah, you're gonna go hang out at Dracula's playing, stupid piece of...
One thing I really don't...
Harker I don't love.
one thing I sit there going, okay, again, everything for screenwriting's sake, I understand, but there's these logic gaps. Later on, Seward, he is involved with something. He can't make it to this dinner, and he just says, "You go, honey. I'm sorry. I don't care if it's 1913. There's no way this guy goes, oh, none of us can make it. So why don't you go have dinner with the single all by yourself?"
Yep.
At the creepy
because he
castle.
goes, Harker's out of town. Seward's going, I got to go pick up Van Helsing at the train station.
So why don't you keep Dracula company?
Yeah.
The clearly DTF European count.
No one's ever been more DTF than this version
No
of Dracula.
One.
Yeah.
No one.
This guy...
John Holmes was never as DTF as this Dracula.
No, I mean, this Dracula is just a human. He's just a full body erection, right? He's just.
Why do you think the collar's that big? They're trying to disguise some of it.
Every part of him is aroused 24/7. Yeah, even the collar's got a hard on.
Even the collar's got.
Why do you think that hair's so high?
Oh
it's
my
normal
God.
hair, and then he's just like whoop.
I will do this film on 3 conditions. 1, you don't touch my hair. 2, no fangs. And 3, I'm just an erection.
Yeah.
I will play Dracula, but only as a walking erection.
Yeah. So Seward, Lucy goes on her way to Carfax, and we hear strange noises as she takes off on her coach ride. Meanwhile, Seward goes to greet Van Helsing at the train station. And I do love the immediate shift in, like, we see Van Helsing get off the train. 45 minutes in, IMDb told me it's 45 minutes into the movie when Laurence Olivier enters. I love the idea of being that prestigious that IMDb will keep track of when you show up in the movie. Because it's like, we might as well just fast forward to this part because we all know you're watching for Olivier. And
he's great.
He is great. I just watched Hitchcock's Rebecca a couple months ago. Fucking hell. Oh, it's so good. What a gorgeous movie to begin with, and he's amazing in it.
Indeed.
But look, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, Rebecca's really good? Yeah, I'm really out on a limb on that one.
Here's my hot take.
Yeah.
Hitchcock knew how to make a movie.
The hotter take would be if I like that Army Hammer version that was out earlier this year.
Not nearly enough cannibalism in it for me.
No. And that was Army's note on the script, actually.
That career is not coming back.
No, he's done. He is done forever. He is absolutely. You don't come back from that.
He was almost Batman.
Oh, I know. I was just saying that to somebody today. Thank God he wasn't Batman, so we don't have to deal with that. I mean, he wouldn't have been terrible.
Got a good face for it.
Yeah. So she goes there, but I love this immediate shift where Van Helsing's like, or Seward's like, Abraham, over here, and he's just like, hey, what happened to my daughter? Oh yes, right. Under my watch, she's dead.
Yeah,
good. That makes sense. You would ask that.
Seward does say, he goes, this is all on me. It is all my fault.
Yeah.
He goes, that I was in charge of looking after her.
Yeah.
And Van Helsing lets him off the hook. But he does say, what did you give her? Tell me everything.
Yeah.
And that's where he says, well, she was very weak, and I gave her a lot. He goes, really?
We're kind of cross-cutting between Lucy's at Carfax with Dracula and Van Helsing just being like, what happened? Run it down. Like, so we're cutting back between these two scenes. Because he
does mention the marks on the throat.
Yeah.
He mentions the weakness and all that. And immediately Van Helsing's like, oh, really?
Uh-oh.
Oh, Jesus.
Uh-oh. I know where this is going.
I like this take. I mean, he's not book accurate, but he's the closest we're getting.
So good. He's
Until
so
probably
good in this.
Our friend,
Hopkins
in Coppola, when we finally get Mr. Hopkins.
Hopkins is so amazing in that.
He really
is. But I love Laurence Olivier as Van Helsing. I mean, not only is obviously a great actor, but yeah, it's a good take on the character.
Dude, all I can say is, in a cage match, you got to pick one or the other. You're gonna go with our
Hopkins. I'm going Hopkins.
Hopkins over Larry.
Hopkins over Larry.
Hopkins over Cushing?
No, never.
It's tough, isn't it?
Never. Though I will say on that point, Cushing is not really novel Dracula. So in terms of
he's not.
accuracy,
He's a different character, but he's a great character. He's a
great character. I mean, Cushing as Van Helsing is amazing.
He's just great.
Yeah, and Cushing is Frankenstein.
Larry's not going to throw down with Dracula, though. Larry, he gets in a clinch.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in here with this. Badham realizes the action of these scenes pretty well. Just the physicality of the vampire fighting that I like a lot. Dracula, meanwhile, is telling Lucy all about the legacy of his family, which is, once again, sort of the last of them dropping in stuff from the beginning of the novel into the later movie.
Exactly.
We get some of that. He does speak Romanian, as we mentioned. And this is a strange cut, because we cut from that to a woman screaming and leaping leaping out the sanitarium window.
It is a weird cut because we're very confused as to what we just saw.
I will say it scared the shit out of me. Not because it's a well constructed jump scare. It's just such a sudden, like, Jesus.
Yeah, especially coming from a conversation scene, and suddenly someone is going through a glass window,
and there's this horrible shrieking scream. And and the patient with the baby is like, my baby's dead. They killed my baby. And
Stewart and Van Helsing run up there.
Yeah.
And there's a dead baby. We got a dead baby on screen, ladies and gentlemen.
Finally, we got a dead baby in one of these things. Yeah.
Those of you who had that on your bingo cards, go ahead and mark it.
Oh, I didn't want to know what the monsters bingo card would be.
No.
Yeah.
But she's like, and they're like, well, what happened? And they're like, was it someone you didn't recognize the attacker, did you? And she's like, yes, I did. It was Miss Mina.
Bum, bum, bum.
But that's not possible. They just buried her.
Yeah, right? And Van Helsing's like, uh-oh.
Van Helsing again's like, this seems, I'm not going out on a limb, but it seems vampire-esque.
Well, because in the next scene, he'll have to get out his book about vampires, of course.
Oh, God. Why would Van Helsing need everything you ever wanted to know about vampires but were afraid to ask?
Yeah, we just see him reading it, and there's, like, drawings of bats and stuff, and he's like, yeah.
Yeah, no one does well in those scenes.
And I see here, Alucard, something about, what is that? Can someone fetch me a mirror?
Dude, he doesn't need to fetch a mirror, because later on we see that this place has a mirror the size of, like, Texas is the biggest goddamn mirror in the world.
Really
in there.
Sets up that scene. So good. So anyway, Dracula, meanwhile, is taking Lucy out onto the porch, and this is where we get the Children of the Night.
This is where we get the Children of the Night, and they changed that line subtly.
Yes. Richter was very proud of this.
He goes, what sad music they make.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, I've never found it sad. I always thought it was, beautiful. And he's like, I think it's the loneliest sound in the world.
Yeah, because that was something Richter brought up, is he really wanted Dracula to be playing up the, like, I'm just a lonely fella here in my...
It does come across less like this is a true insight into him.
Yeah.
And more like he is playing her.
Oh, poor me. I just get so lonely in this place.
And it's also a little on the nose with her going, I find the night exciting.
Yeah.
I think that sound is beautiful. It's basically them going, Lucy's totally down.
Yeah.
She wants it bad.
Yeah. So then Van Helsing's trying to tell Lucy about, like, do you know about vampires? And she's like, oh, for the love of God, stop with the vampires, Van Helsing.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, okay, just Mina would have wanted you to have this. And he gives her a cross. He's just like, well,
and she'd want you to always wear it and never take it off. He literally says
they're out by Mina's grave doing this, because then Dracula, oh my God, you talk about a swooning, like, as he rides this horse majestically.
Well, this is a Harlequin romance novel cover come to life, because Dracula in his cloak is on a jet black horse riding up to the graveyard.
And, like, they even play it like Van Helsing's still talking, and he starts to fade away as, his voice fades out, as Lucy's just like, let me look at this man coming our way.
Yep.
And it's slow motion, isn't it? Like, he's like,
yes. And the cape is gently flapping.
And we're at that sunset kind of magic hours. He's just like, that's right, here comes Dracula.
However, folklore would have it, it's not just white horses, but horses can't stand vampires. So,
Yeah.
but then again, the novel does have the horses and the carriage. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's inconsistent.
Dracula riding a horse
It's
is sort of like,
inconsistent
really?
across the board. Maybe it's a vampire horse.
Yeah, doesn't matter. It's a cool thing.
It's a
And
cool
he comes
shot.
in and he's
Yeah.
like going, well, hello, Lucy. And she's like,
Yeah.
well, hello, Count. And this is Mr. Van Helsing goes, oh, you're Mina's father. You're the reason I'm here. Is
Yeah.
like I came to pay my respects to
Yeah.
Mina. And he's like, sure, that's very nice. And he's looking at him going, you're the vampire, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm feeling it.
Well, I
You're
like
the
because once again, Langella does that same thing as he did with the blood earlier, where he just sort of clocks the cross, and he's like,
Yep.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, and he's like, that was a thoughtful gift.
Yeah. And I like Van Helsing's like, will you come inside and join us for dinner or whatever? He's like, no, I don't think I will. And it's all, at this point, it's all Van Helsing being like, I'm on to this guy.
I'm
see
sorry,
where this
but
is
it's sort of
going.
like, of course, if Van Helsing is the guy who knows about vampires,
Yeah.
and he comes to this place and he goes, oh, a European nobleman just
Yeah.
came in? You don't see him
Oh.
during daylight a lot?
Right away.
And he just met the women that are both getting sick and then one died?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
right,
your vampire.
right away. It's instant here, where he's just like, yeah, I know what your deal is.
I know what your deal is.
Yeah, which is a kind of like Van Sloan in the 31 movie, where it's pretty quick. He's like, something's
Yeah,
off
it's
about
true.
this
He's
dude.
automatically on the trail.
Yeah, which I like. I do like that. The blood.
I like a Van Helsing who knows his shit.
Yeah, I do. Oh my god, incompetent Van Helsings or
One of the worst things ever. That
it's-
one TV movie thing. Jesus.
The Van Helsing is like, just maybe, but now hold
And
on.
the Van Helsing and Nosferatu. Jesus.
That's the worst Van Helsing. I like.
He
that
is the
movie, but
worst
that-
one yet.
That Van Helsing is terrible. So,
I'm revoking your Van Helsing license.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wish that was a different character. Like, it shouldn't be Van Helsing. So let's see. Seward. Oh yeah. At this point, this is where Van Helsing is like, that guy's a vampire, right? To Seward, and Seward's like, oh god, there's no such thing as vampires. Abraham, come on now, they don't exist.
And he goes, "Oh, I'll show you they exist."
Mm-hmm.
And then we get not in the novel. This isn't in the novel. This is folklore. This is taking the white horse into the graveyard because white horses supposedly can sense a vampire's presence. So when it freaks out or whinnies at a grave, a vampire's in that grave.
Yeah, and so so he's like, all right, we better dig this up. And Renfield's just,
and of course it's Mina's grave. I mean, Van Helsing knew it would be.
Yeah. And Renfield's watching this from the window, and there's through the bars of the window, and there's just a bug crawling up, and he just kind of leans over and casually gives a
Yeah. In case you guys forgot he existed, they had to put him back in there real quick.
This might have the most bug eating for Renfield. I mean, he eats like 4 to 5 bugs in this movie.
I think it's only like 3, but I could be wrong.
I just remember it's a few because usually you get like 1, and it's sort of the point.
Sure.
Here,
Yes.
they keep going back to it. They love it. They love it in this movie. Yeah, maybe it's 3 or 4. Yeah, I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. It's just I noticed it was like a running thing as opposed to usually.
John, do you think any of our listeners are tracking Renfield bug eating?
Now this versus Klaus Kinski versus versus our buddy Dwight Fry. Oh, this Renfield's okay to me. He's not great.
He's okay.
Yeah, we've seen worse. Kinski was actually not a good one, which I thought was interesting because
I know. So
hopes,
strange.
Such high hopes for that. It just seems like a perfect part for him. So they dig it up, and the coffin is empty. But not only is it empty, it's broken out the side, and there's a tunnel dug in somewhere. And I love you talk about why I love this Van Helsing, the way he's just like, I'm going in.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because this has to be all bad. This is coming from nowhere, but this is essentially you have Seward quickly going, oh, the mines. They run all the way around this place.
Yeah.
You're like, okay.
Yeah.
So underneath Mina's grave is an entry to a mine shaft, which basically just means Van Helsing and Seward have to go down in there, which is slightly more creepy. Yeah. And then you get scabrous, horrifying looking vampire Mina.
Ooh, man. I mean, I was a little not startled or scared, but I was a little like, oh Jesus, when she showed up on screen.
Glowing red eyes,
Yeah.
her skin's all gray
Because
and flaky.
there's been no imagery in the movie like this up to this point, and there's
No,
no imagery in the
no.
movie like this after. It is
And
one like, whew.
he's only been a vampire, conservatively, 3 days or something? You're
Hey,
like,
man,
wow, what's this look?
Some
This is
people handle it better than others. That's just what I was saying.
It's true.
Some people
So
take to it more than others. Yeah.
Mina has replaced Lucy. In the book, Lucy's the first. She gets turned, and she went around not killing. There's the implication is she was testing it. So she drank from a bunch of kids. It becomes a news article, and she almost kills one, and they stop her in time. But that's a whole thing. Here, she attacked and killed one baby in the asylum, and now they're in her grave, and they're going to have to put her down.
It's great, man. And I just love the way she's like, Daddy?
Yeah, Daddy.
And coming at him. And it's I like the clumsiness of this, though. They're not adept vampire hunters.
It is good.
They know what needs to be
human kind of like, oh God, oh God, oh God. Where's the oh God, oh God?
I don't know. And because Van Helsing's like, what do I do? And she goes to bite him, and it's Seward who grabs her and pulls her aside, and they don't use, I mean, they're stakes, but they're almost like spears that they use in this thing.
They're much longer.
Because then I love the way Mina gets killed here, because Seward throws her back at Van Helsing, who just catches her with the spear.
Yeah,
I like it. It's a good scene.
And then, we jump away before, of course, we get to the part where they've got poor Mina up on a slab, and then they're like, no, she's a vampire.
No, because this is where Dracula comes for Lucy.
Oh, this is the confrontation scene.
No. Dracula comes for Lucy. While they're doing this,
Dracula
comes for Lucy, and they go at it, and this is where things get very 70s and very Maurice Binder. Holy shit.
Wish I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this was.
I mean, I just saw this and just wanted to go, just like the Moonraker. Like, it's so Bond opening sequence kind of thing with their silhouettes and the weird warping laser imagery, and
This is the swing for the fences where he said, "Oh, this is a cool visual effect, and what I will do is, I will have them laying on each other as if they're in bed and they're starting the foreplay.
Yeah.
But they're all going to be silhouetted. There won't be a bed. They're like hanging in space while these red lasers are zapping behind them, turning them into silhouettes, sexy silhouettes. It goes on too long. It's not a great effect.
Yeah.
I get the sexiness, but also was surprised if you're going this long, you need variation, whether that's moving to the next step of now we're undressing or whatever it is. Not me get naked, but I was like going, really, this is a 3-minute scene of just like some foreplay.
Come on,
of kissing.
Brendan, you were sitting there last night screaming, "Where the titties at?"
But that's my catchphrase. So that's what the audience is expecting me to say.
Where the titties at?
every time I say it, I hear the studio audience laugh.
He said the thing.
Where the titties at?
He said the thing.
I know, but
He sure does love titties.
I just thought it was where a director is in love with a cool new effect.
Yes,
and
it is.
Overused, not effective.
Like I said, Badham kind of owns up to it, but he's like, but he's also like, but I don't know. I thought it was cool.
Again, it's getting the point across that this is like a transcendent thing that's beyond just physical coupling.
Yeah.
He's drinking her blood, maybe. We don't see it. Because, again, no fangs.
He definitely is, because literally the next scene is Harker coming, finding her in bed, having been drained of blood.
Looking not so very good.
And Van Helsing and Seward are like, we need to start a blood transfusion now. And Van Helsing at the same time...
And Seward does say, I hope one of you are her type.
Which I like. And it's Harker who's giving her the blood transfusion. Meanwhile, Van Helsing starts hanging garlic. And you gotta love, once again, fucking whiny Jonathan Harker being like, "Oh, garlic! I'm already gonna vomit." It's like,
I'm already feeling sick, and you're hanging garlic. He goes, "Oh, it's all for the cure. It's all good." And he tells Sylvester McCoy, "He's like, you got to go here and rub it on the thing, and make sure you don't miss a spot with the deal."
He goes, "Get your question mark umbrella, and
go get." What was the name of his Ace? Was that his companion? The punk girl?
Yes.
Ace.
That sounds right. I believe
think so. I
Seven.
think that was his last companion, not his. He didn't start with Ace. I
No,
think
but
Ace
that's
was
the
his
one I remember with him for sure. It is
Yeah.
Ace. You're right. Yeah, Ace. Sophie
Yeah,
Aldred played her.
Yeah,
I always liked her.
Yeah, I watched their last episode. At one point, I was just jumping through transitions. I wanted to see the transition from doctor to doctor through
Yeah.
the years. That last episode was pretty weak. I was like, I like Sylvester McCoy, but that
Love
was
him.
just weak.
Love him. I mean, that's one of my favorite things in.
It did have the master in it, though.
Oh, who's always great. I love any episode with the master. That's one of my favorite things, though, in the Paul McGann TV movie that's not great, but that they do make a point of Sylvester McCoy being there.
Yeah,
to
bringing him back just for that is
the
pretty
Eighth
great.
Doctor. I love it.
It is awesome.
Because then that's what keeps that McGann is canonically the Eighth Doctor. Then we saw.
And I love the fact that McCoy was like, I'm okay with the fact I have no dialogue.
I also
I'll be a corpse for you, sure.
because it's a '90s American TV movie. He's gunned down by street gang. Come on, that's a little wild.
Well, they happen to get both of his hearts. Come on.
Right, yeah. Oh no! Light that old dude up. There's some terrible lines like that in it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Like that old dude up.
Somewhere I have a DVD of that movie. I haven't watched it in a long time, but
No, it's been a long time
I
for me
do
too.
own it. So let's see. So they start doing that. Then this is where he leaves the room here. This is the big confrontation scene with Dracula. And he is at this, Van Helsing is at this gigantic mirror, and Dracula walks in. And I do love the way he's not phased, though. He's like, oh, Count Dracula, you should have called ahead or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And then he's just like, I happen to notice this mirror can see this entire room, and yet I don't see you reflected in it.
They do a little bit of the sleight of hand trickery where I think they built the same room in mirror style, and it really is just a glass window. I think it's how they did the scene where they have the doors opening at the same time, but it looks like it's a reflection without him in it.
It's good. It's a nice subtle effect.
It's pretty good. And Van Helsing doesn't give it away. Like you said, he's like, oh, and then Dracula says, yes, a lot of people have said that I have a light step.
Yeah. And then I love him just smashing this mirror once again, and then doing the kind of similar to the Ghosty where he's just like, I don't like mirrors. They spotlight man's vanity.
It's something like they're a symbol of man's vanity.
And it is just sort of thing like, dude, you're not going to come back from just smashing that mirror. That is not
also
something
it's
someone
a
could
big ass mirror. He doesn't successfully smash all of it.
No.
There's still some left up there, and I'm like, is he going to try and start dodging around the little parts that are still up there? But it doesn't matter. Van Helsing's already on it.
No, Van Helsing's
Dracula says, hey, how's Lucy doing? He's like, oh, she's a little weak, but you'd be I'm trying a new remedy for her. Would you like to know what it is?
And he just
He's like,
busts out this garlic, and Dracula's like, ah!
Mm-hmm.
Which
and he says, you're a wise, and they're using the same dialogue from the 31.
This is
or the play, I guess.
Badham said he did it like he did on Broadway, where he hurled himself across the room and smashed into the wall when he pulled out the garlic. And Badham's like, that's a little big. And Langella's like, that's how I want to do it. That's how I did it on Broadway. And he goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to shoot it. Then
Compromise.
You're going to, he goes, then you're going to come to dailies with me. And you're going to take a look. And he goes, if you think it works, I'll shut the hell up. And you can do it, because I trust you, Frank. And he said he took him to the dailies, and he showed him fly across the room, and Langella was just like, oh my God. Yeah, let's shoot it again. No.
Well, the compromise is pretty good, because it's a violent reaction, but what he does is he spins back, and then he hides in a little alcove.
Yes.
Like it's like, and then he addresses Van Helsing without turning back around. He just goes, you're a clever man, Van Helsing. And especially for one who has only had the benefit of one lifetime.
Because I love some of the dialogue in this movie, I did look up the quotes on IMDb so that I could actually find it. You are a wise man, Professor, for someone who has not lived even a single lifetime. And he says,
it's exactly the quote from 31. That's exactly the same quote.
You flatter me, Count, but not wise enough to return to Holland at once now that you have learned what you have learned.
Yeah.
And then he does say, in the past 500 years, Professor, those who have crossed my path have all died, and some not pleasantly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's as good a Dracula dialogue as you can get, man.
It's so good.
That's good. I love it so much.
Good.
And I just love this whole thing where it's like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere, pal.
And he comes out, and then Van Helsing's like, "Oh, the garlic wasn't enough." And this did jar me as a kid. And
Yeah.
this ended up as, because it's also one of the publicity photos, and it was in the
It
trailer.
is, yeah.
Is he pulls out from his Bible, and this is something you would have. It's a placeholder in the Bible,
Yeah.
where it's like basically like a popsicle stick, and on the end of it, a circular sun design with a cross inside
I will say,
it.
being the heathen, non-religious person I am, I didn't know what the hell this thing was that he pulled. I've seen the pictures, I've seen the trailers, I know, but I've always just been like, and seen this movie before, it's just like, what the hell is that thing?
Yeah, well, that's what it is. But as a kid, I mean, I know that's legit.
It has the cross on it, so I go with it because I'm like, oh yeah, well yeah, he wouldn't like.
But
that.
I just, the physical thing of holding the cross is a big deal.
Yeah.
So this, even though the reaction's great, because again, Dracula's, and I thought it was interesting that Dracula, he says, heretic.
Yeah.
He says that. And I'm like, why would this guy holding a cross be the heretic? Interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting. And he forces him out the window where he turns into wolf form and leaps out the window, which is cool. So he's got him now. Oh, Kat, you on mic with that now? He's being chatty.
Hey, Columbo.
He suddenly gets up here and goes, meow. Hey, buddy. They're like, okay, we got to convince Harker about this. So this is where they take him out to show him Mina's body and that it has no reflection.
Yeah, I couldn't quite understand at the beginning because, again, I hadn't seen this in a long time, what they were getting at. Because they're like, we'll prove they're vampires. And they've got Mina out of the grave under a sheet. And when they pull the sheet down, he goes, she looks great. And then they're like, yeah, almost too great, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's still alive. And then they put the mirror down there. I'm like, they're not checking for breath, are they? I was like, oh, no, right, okay.
Right, because
but that doesn't make any sense because since they've killed her, she's no longer a vampire. Why would she not have a reflection? I thought
the same thing, but it's like, I guess in terms of screenplay economy, it's a good way to get Harker on board.
Sure, why not?
Because he's like, I don't know, Dracula's some kind of monster? And then this clicks him in, and then from here, this is my note just says Van Helsing says it's go time. And it is like, we gotta deal with this son of a bitch tonight.
Yeah.
But then of course they're like, hey, where'd Lucy go? Oh, she's in that carriage riding away from the. Oh fuck! Get your car.
At this point, the music starts. It goes.
Yeah.
It doesn't really, but it basically becomes the big chase scene.
So they chase her down in the car, which I was like, ooh, this is the first Dracula movie we've watched that has a car chase. I like that. Because it does feel like he is doing the play. He is kind of doing the 31 verse in some ways, but it does feel like Badham is
trying to open it up.
He's trying to inject some energy and some action and some intensity into it, right? Like it is there's a propulsion to this. That's something that I've definitely complained about in some of the other adaptations we've watched of it lacking that. This version definitely has a propulsive quality that I like.
He's also realizing that he doesn't want to. And I kind of wish he did, but he doesn't want to open it up as much as the novel did, as in going all the way back to Transylvania and doing the horseback chasing and all that.
Yeah, he does something different. We get a boat chase.
They meet the boat way before it ever gets to Transylvania.
So they chase her down, and they're trying to reason with her, basically going like, no, this guy's evil, man. He wants to hurt you. Trust us. You got to come with us. But it doesn't matter because she ends up collapsing, and Van Helsing's like, get her out of here. Seward, you take her home. Harker and I was like, no, take Seward. He's a better character. And I just want to see Donald Pleasance and Laurence Olivier as vampire hunting bros some more. So
I know.
Van Helsing and Harker go up to Carfax. They do this big build up to where they find this crate, and you think Dracula's going to be in it. And then they open it up, and it's just dirt. They're like, oh, damn. And
then it's the sanctifying of the dirt.
Yeah, that's where he goes, oh, not all is lost, Harker. We can at least wreck this for him. And he starts breaking up the wafers and saying the prayer into the dirt, which is when Dracula appears, and he's like, what the hell's going on here?
You invade this is my man cave.
Yeah, and this is where... I am obsessed with what he says in this scene. I love this dialogue here where he says, Oh, I got to read this because this is so good. He goes,
You do it. I'm right here.
"You fools! Do you think with your crosses and your wafers you can destroy me? Me! You do not know how many men have come against me. I am the king of my kind. You have accomplished nothing, Van Helsing. Time is on my side. In a century, you are dust. I shall wake and call Lucy my queen from her grave. I have, in my time, had many brides, Mr. Harker, but I shall set Lucy above them all." And Harker says, "You won't get Lucy." And Dracula's like, "She's mine already."
Oh, dude.
Oh, it's great. It's just like, I mean, nothing's better than "I am the king of my kind."
No, nothing is better
It's
than
like,
that.
yes, king of the vampires, Dracula.
All day long. All
Love
day
it,
long.
Love it. And
I love the way, again, this scene is underlining what I said. Jonathan Harker, genre fiction's biggest cuck.
Yep. Absolutely. And
he is saying, like, I got your wife. I've
love,
already got her.
I love how Langella plays this. The mask of civility is gone. He's a full-on fucking villain. And he's just
I
like,
gotta
dude,
say it again.
You don't
this
stand
guy's
a chance.
voice.
Yeah. Amazing.
That's why he works as Skeletor. That makeup is good, but it doesn't give him much movement. It doesn't matter, man. That voice.
It's so good. It's always.
He should be doing audio dramas. I'm gonna call him up.
I'm sure he's done. Like, he's got to be reading audio.
He's got to be doing audiobooks, but I want to do audio dramas.
Yeah. So let's see. He consecrates the soil. Oh, I love this. Harker picks up this cross and Dracula grabs it and just lights on fire.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool, man. And
I can only assume that means Jonathan's faith is not strong enough.
I think that's exactly what that means. But Van Helsing notices that there's some scaffolding that's blocking the window here. And so when Dracula turns into a bat and starts biting Harker, Van Helsing starts busting the stuff down and he lights up this bat.
Yeah, what I like is that Jonathan's on the ground with Dracula as bat chawing on him.
Yeah.
And Jonathan's going, "Are you going to do something to help me?"
And Van Helsing
he's like yelling at Van Helsing, and Van Helsing's like, one moment, as he's smacking this beam out of the way, which opens up a whole shaft of daylight, which sets the bat on fire, and finally Jonathan's okay.
And so that gets them out of there. Meanwhile, they get back to the sanatorium to find that Seward has locked Lucy in one of the cells, going like, well, that's just going to be best for everybody.
Yeah.
And Harker's like, I want to see her. And Van Helsing's like, dude, it's really not going to be her. That's going to be a bad idea. But then they're kind of like, well, let's see what happens if he goes in there, though.
Let's see what happens.
And she's all reasonable at first, like, oh, Jonathan, what's going on? And then he gets close to her stupidly, and she tries to bite him.
Yeah, that's essentially Lucy from the book when right before she dies. She does that with Arthur, like, "Oh, come and hug me, and how about a kiss?" And then she bares the fangs, and Van Helsing knocks Arthur out of the way. Yeah. So they're using little bits. They're just re-editing them.
Because Van Helsing comes in here with the cross and gets her off of him. Meanwhile, this orderly, this is Swales, comes up and goes, "Hey, Renfield's eating bugs again."
Do you remember that show, This is Swales, his spinoff?
This is
pretty
Swales. Great. It didn't last long, though. It was one of those brilliant but canceled shows.
He's old. He's British. He doesn't have a lot to do. This is Swales.
This is Swales. This is Swales was filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Where'd them titties at? I got my catchphrase from.
Well, and I thought that's kind of was the downfall, unfortunately, when they brought you into Goose ratings with that catchphrase. Where them titties at?
I was the Urkel of This is Swales.
Well, maybe if we bring in a titty obsessed young man, he'll save the show. Where them
did the sanitarium and finally calmed down a little. Hey, where them titties at?
Oh no, my American nephew. Oh dear, like he's on.
People are now running to see Brendan Jones on IMDb to see how many episodes of This is Swales I was on.
13 was it? It was a tight 13, right?
Tight 13. We got the one and done. Yeah, that was our season.
Yeah. So he says Renfield's eating bugs again. So they put him in a straitjacket, and they go, that should take care of it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that he's in a straitjacket, but he shares the cell, which means there's going to be a witness to what's about to happen.
Yeah, because we get Dracula climbing down the side of the sanitarium now, and coming in as mist into the room, and Renfield's he's like, Renfield, I promised you so much, eternal life and power at your death. He goes, but I didn't want to die, which I thought was actually kind of a good thing, where it's like, you have to die to get this. He's like, then I am not on board.
And he basically says, I'm so disappointed in you because you gave me up. You told them what I was up to.
And he goes,
and he kind of did.
Yeah, and he's like, look, punish me any way you want, just don't kill me. Well, finally, by the way, I've always wanted to see Dracula do this in like one of the Hammer things. He just fucking turns this dude's head completely around.
It's actually a pretty good effect.
It is. The head's not bad.
Yeah, and it wobbles a little weakly as it falls, which makes it look like it has been disconnected from a spine.
Correct.
It's pretty
he just
good.
Turns it around. Love it. Just drops him, and then he grabs Lucy, and they're out of there, man. He busts out the side of Lucy's cell, which is why I didn't think we needed the shot looking down of them crawling away with Lucy, because just seeing that this dude has punched a hole in this stone wall is cool.
It is. The crawling down this. I mean, okay, it's tricky to make that work anyway.
Yeah.
And when you have it similar to Superman and Lois, speaking of which, where it's one person who is supernaturally able to somehow suspend themselves, that's Dracula. But when you have a person who supposedly physics is going to work on, like Lucy or Lois, why is she rigidly in the same position? How could he possibly keep her that way?
Right.
All he could possibly do is bundle her up and have her bent over his arm or something. They shouldn't have shown it. You're right, because it's just goofy looking.
It's just so much cooler to see, like, oh, he got away and he blew a hole in the wall. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway,
he could have just held her in his arms and leapt or something. I mean, whatever.
They once again are chasing the wagon with the coffin in it, but the car ends up speeding.
Well, this is okay, we're in Act 3, and some of my problem comes here, because this is the final, we're going to get that guy, he got our Lucy.
Yeah.
But it comes uncomfortably, even though there is a death in it and whatever, a crash, it looks and feels like those daring young men in their jaunty jalopies. It looks like one of those cheesy, like
they're all wearing the goggles, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, that is period appropriate, but this just becomes like, let's race quick to the docks. They
end up crashing the car.
They end up crashing the car.
I love this thing
about, how far is it to the dock? And it's like, whoa, 10 miles. Oh boy.
I did think, would they have said miles in England?
Oh, you're right.
No.
They probably,
it would have been kilometers, right?
I don't know when the decimal system came into being.
But they wouldn't have said miles ever in England, I don't think, would they?
Well,
I don't know. It just
metric system, I don't know when that became default.
But all I thought was, oh, Laurence Olivier and Donald Pleasance aren't making it 10 miles on foot.
Oh my God, I need to go away.
What?
The metric system was actually developed in France in the 1790s. So, yes, they would have been saying kilometers.
There you go. That just hit me as wrong. But I just thought that well, we have to chance it and run 10 miles. I just thought both of these guys would drop dead, right?
Yeah.
These old dudes. And particularly Pleasance, who was never in particularly great shape.
You could walk 5 miles in like a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So let's say these guys, even at a walking speed, that's still 4 hours. I expected that to be an excuse. I kept thinking they were doing that as an excuse that they would get to the docks as the sun was going down.
Yeah, no.
But no, it doesn't really play in.
They get to the docks and they're like, where did that coffin go? And it's on its way. It's already like sailed away from the dock, but it's still within sight. And they're like, quick, get that tugboat or whatever, the
name of the ship, right? It's the Tsarina Katerina.
Yeah.
So they get a tugboat captain to take them to the ship while it's still sailing.
Yeah.
They get on board, and this is what I thought was funny. The Russian people on the ship, the sailors.
Yeah.
They're like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Nosferatu," and they're
Yeah.
trying to like, "There's
Dracula,
something evil."
Count Dracula, is he on board? Nosferatu,
And
vampire.
what was funny is eventually they just go, "We don't know what you're talking about," and then just let these strangers go into the hold. They just like let these guys go down there. Even guns are fired, and no one comes to see what's going on.
Right.
The sailors just like let those guys do whatever they need to down there.
Yep.
Let them do whatever they need to.
They got business down there. So they go down into the hold of the ship. They find the coffin with Dracula and Lucy in it. They're cuddled up together. This must just eat away at Harker.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But Dracula wakes up and grabs this spear from Van Helsing.
Yeah, it is like a spear. It's almost like a knotty bamboo shoot.
Dude, he just impales Van Helsing with it.
He pins Van Helsing to the bulkhead.
Holy shit. I saw that and went,
This is
whoa!
the first time we've seen Van Helsing literally buy it.
Yeah. I thought, good God. I like that he doesn't immediately die from this and still gets to be heroic, though.
Yes.
He gets pinned from that. And then he turns on Harker, who, like a moron, has brought a peace with him.
Yeah. Why? And Van Helsing, they showed Van Helsing look at Jonathan Harker loading up this gun.
Yeah.
And I thought, why isn't Van Helsing telling him, don't even bother? It's not going to do anything.
Is it just him going, well, if it makes him feel better?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he empties it into Dracula, who stands there,
Dracula's
takes
like,
it.
What?
He's like, no big whoop.
Yeah. And then he comes at him, and he's got him by the throat. And he's squeezing the life out of him when Van Helsing, who's, once again, impaled and pinned to the side of the ship, sees this giant, like, hook.
Yeah, cargo hook thing. Yeah. And I okay. For an ending, this is all kind of badass, but this is also logic. Act 3, like I said, for me, I'm just like, dude, no, this is dumb.
I don't care. I love this Dracula death.
Pinned to, well, I do like the death, but pinned to the wall, the guy's able to aim and have enough strength to throw this hook to where it hooks into Dracula's back.
Yeah,
like, sinks into him.
And that was something also Badham brought up in the interview. He goes, I wanted to kill Dracula in a totally new way. Like, I didn't want to just have a staking. I wanted to do something that was different than what we'd seen before.
It's a pretty cool idea. So they get him on the chain, and is it Jonathan who gets turns the crank or whatever?
Yeah. And it lifts
him up. So the crank opens up the cargo hold and then pulls the thing all the way up to the masts.
Yeah.
With Dracula just dangling and roaring. I do love that.
Oh,
Dracula's like, no fucking way.
Langella acts the hell out of this. And then when he's hit by the sun, he's burning, and Langella's just flopping. Like, this Dracula goes out. That was something we were disappointed in a lot of the Hammer movies.
Yeah, no, I like this. He is furious.
Yeah, and
and they do a little bit of the cheesy thing, because when he looks at what is killing him, which is the sun, they do this weird, like, sci-fi close-up of the sun.
Yeah,
like you see, like,
more
actual solar rays and stuff. You're like,
that's a little much once again in this. But I do like the way his skin is burning and boiling.
Every time they cut away, they cut back to show him at a further degree. Like his hair has gone white, then it's falling out, and his skin is flaking off. Pretty badass. Really, and then a lightning bolt strikes him. He turns into a blackened skeleton.
And James Mason stood up in the theater and went, "It's been done! It's been done!"
So this is great, but they cut back down to, I mean, Van Helsing is dead, but they cut down to Jonathan and Lucy in the hold. Lucy, who was all vampire-y for a bit, now her face fades to being normal, and she starts kind of crying, looking up at Dracula dead. And she kind of tries to lean against Jonathan, and Jonathan's not having it.
Right.
And then she looks back up, and the cape, which is all that's left of Dracula now, and it's also apparently a kite.
Yep. Flutters away, and she kind of smiles a little bit.
It is a really ambiguous ending. To me, Dracula is dead. Why is she smiling?
Yeah.
Is she going to continue the vampire race? Is she still kind of a vampire?
Oh, Badham clarified this.
Oh, good. What does Badham say?
She's carrying Dracula's child.
Oh, nice.
That's what Badham intended that ending to be, is like, he will live on through our progeny.
Okay. I mean, I'll take it for this version. I'll take it. And
Yeah.
did he imagine there being a sequel?
I think he thought it was possible. He at least liked the idea of an open ending to maybe
There are some people,
Son of Dracula?
and I don't agree. There are even some, huge International Dracula fan club members who read the ending of the novel, which jumps forward in time to Jonathan and Mina with their child Quincy.
Yep.
Some of them think that Quincy might actually be Dracula's child.
No, I don't like
based
that.
on the novel. And I don't like it
that
either.
at all.
For one thing, vampire mortal children, unless you're talking about Blade, I don't buy that shit.
Yeah, and Blade is
he's a comic book character. They've done something different there.
But also, like, she was already pregnant and she got bit and it passed on to the baby. It's not a vampire that impregnated her. So it's a different thing.
That's how we got our Daywalker. But
Daywalker. Oh, I can't wait to get to those movies. Me either. That'll
be fun.
So anyway,
so that's
the end of John Badham's Dracula.
We do spend about 8 minutes at the end credits just watching that black.
Yeah, you really do. You really do. And I kept watching, going, "Is something going to come of this?" No.
He liked the visual.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's like a soul or
and
a
once
dark
again,
bird
it's of its
or whatever.
time. It's how you would end a movie then. Like we need something over the credits. It's not going to just be black credits. You're like, no, you can just leave it.
Quasi-poetic.
Yeah.
And I will say, well, you give your summation. Give your summation.
I think this movie's a lot of fun. I think this is a really good, entertaining Dracula movie. I think this is one that is worth watching because I think legitimately people will enjoy this one. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's well done. Great production. Great cast. There's some weird choices here and there. It definitely deviates from the novel. Some of which I like, some of which I don't. But and worth it purely because Langella is amazing. Amazing in the part.
It's a softer recommend for me. Only because of the nitpicky parts, because sometimes it does seem like there's a difference. There are smart choices that, as another writer, I can understand why they were made.
Yep.
Then there are arbitrary changes. Arbitrary changes, I go, that makes no sense, and it makes me angry.
Yeah.
And then there's some weaknesses, especially in the third act, where the chasing and all that nonsense. But I agree with all the strengths of it. The strengths are there, and it is entertaining. And Frank Langella, regardless of the 70s hair, is one of our greatest Draculas.
He owns this part.
Laurence Olivier, this is maybe campy stuff for him, but he doesn't play it that way. He's a very good, serious Van Helsing.
Yes.
I love his Van Helsing.
Yep.
Donald Pleasance is a pleasure because he's Donald Pleasance.
I love him in anything. He's a guy who I'm always thrilled to see in something.
Kate Nelligan is quite good.
Yeah, I think so.
I still think she should have been Mina, but quite good.
Yeah.
So, all right. I will also agree people should watch it.
For sure.
May I say this before we leave the 70s? I want to give a couple of shout outs of things that we are leaving behind.
Okay.
That we never talked about. And before we go on to the 80s, I want to acknowledge them.
Yes.
There was a Saturday morning program called The Monster Squad.
Yes.
It lasted from 1976 to 1977. It only had a season.
Yep.
Starred Fred Grandy of the Love Boat. He was your yeoman purser, gopher.
Yes.
But on Monster Squad, he ran a wax museum, and he built a crime computer in the wax museum, and the vibrations of the crime computer, which happened to be in the Chamber of Horrors of the Wax Museum, caused the wax statues of Count Dracula, the Frankenstein monster, and the Wolfman to come to life somehow.
Yes. I've seen pieces of it, yeah.
He used they became friends, and they became a crime-fighting unit. The classic monsters fought crime as the Monster Squad. It is terrible. It was made for children, and I watched it every week. So we are not covering it, but I want to give a shout out to that.
Great, yeah.
And also the Saturday morning cartoon, the Drac Pack.
Yeah.
Which
the best version of Dracula.
Yes, best version of Dracula. And that one lasted, that was actually, you know what? That was 1980.
Never mind then. We'll talk about it next week.
Talk about it next week. I'll hold off on the Drac Pack. But those are two that I know that we won't cover, obviously.
Right, yeah, right.
But as a young monster fan, I took them in every variety. I was watching the movies, TV shows, anything, and dolls and color form sets and Aurora model kits, just like Lance Kerwin in Salem's Lot.
Yes, yes.
So it's all part and parcel. Those were places I could see Dracula, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein's monster.
Nice.
So next week, what are we watching?
We began in 1980, officially starting a new season of the show, and we began with that cinematic classic, that much beloved, regaled and acclaimed, Humanoids from the Deep.
This is a shit burger that I can't wait to share with you, John. But what I'll do is I'll cut it down the middle. Then you get half and I get half. We will share this shit burger.
Love it.
It is a terrible film to get us started on our 4th season.
Yes, season 4.
Holy mackerel.
Season 4, Humanoids of the Deep.
HBO standby in the early days of the 80s and HBO.
I know of it. I've never seen it. This is a first viewing for me, so
it's terrible. I'm going to let you know right off the bat, you're going to hate it.
Yeah, and you were the one who specifically said we should do this, so.
And it's mainly because I did see it often because I was a kid who liked horror movies and it had boobs in it, and I was like 11 or 12.
Because where them titties at, right?
Titties at, and also because it is slim pickings when it gets down to Gilman. Any kind of underwater monster, we don't get a lot of.
That's the lone one next season is Humanoids from the Deep. So
I actually think it's all werewolf, isn't it? Next season is all werewolf.
It's so much werewolf with a smattering of vampire, a little bit of Frankenstein, and a small side of mummy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No Phantom.
Oh, a little bit of Phantom too. Yeah.
Okay, a sprinkling as well.
Couple of Phantoms.
I look forward to it. I mean, every time we jump to a new decade, I know time is arbitrary.
Yeah.
But the 80s do have a different feel. And by the time we are in the middle of next decade, it's going to feel like we're watching completely different
100%,
stuff.
100%. So,
can't wait.
Follow along with us into the 1980s next week. But that is going to do it for this week's episode and for season 3 of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
Goodbye to the 70s. Goodbye to the 70s. Goodbye to the 70s. That one we can get away with.